Ruth Irwin is suing her granddaughter's ex-boyfriend, 24-year-old sales associate David Berlin, for babysitting fees, child care costs, and a broken door. David is countersuing for mental anguish and the return of his TV.
It's case number 547 on the calendar in the matter of Irwin versus Berlin. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
Miss Irwin, Mr. Berlin is your granddaughter's ex-boyfriend?
Right, Your Honor.
And you claim he owes you some money for babysitting for his daughter?
Yes, Your Honor, it was a copay.
Just a second. And then for some furniture that you purchased, which enabled him to get custody of his daughter from a previous relationship.
Yes, you're right.
Okay. Your granddaughter and the defendant have a child together?
Yes, Your Honor.
And in addition to that, sir, you have a child from another relationship?
That's correct.
The child from the other relationship is how old?
2.5.
And there came a time when you were contacted with regard to gaining custody of this child because the mother was a drug abuser?
Yes, ma'am.
When was that?
I believe it was November of 2004.
And at that time, where were you living?
At that time, I was living in a place in Portland, Oregon.
Who were you living with?
It was with Jennifer at the time.
Jennifer is Miss Irwin's granddaughter?
Correct.
And your child with her?
Correct.
When you were contacted about taking your daughter, did you at any time move in with Mrs. Irwin?
Basically, they moved in with us, and then we had to get a...
Who's they?
Ruth Irwin and also her son, Sean, moved in with us, and then we had to get a bigger place because I was basically getting custody of my daughter.
Now, what arrangement did you make with Mrs. Irwin as far as babysitting for your daughter while you worked? I assume you were working?
Correct.
Go ahead.
The arrangement was basically that she was going to watch my kid while I was at work, and at first it was okay, no payment involved. After a while it became that she wanted to get paid for it, which I could see, it's understandable. So I went to the DHS office and...
DHS?
Department of Human Resources.
So that you didn't earn enough to pay for child care, so you were getting state subsidized care?
Correct.
And the agreement was, Miss Irwin, with the state, was that you were going to get $300 a month.
No, Your Honor.
How much a month?
The state did not pay me no $300 a month.
How much did they pay you?
The state paid me, on an average, $192 a month, and David was to match a copay, which he got extra food stamps to compensate.
Just a second, I'm speaking. You say he was to give you $169
yes.
a month? For how many months did you babysit?
4 months.
Did she babysit for 4 months?
This is correct.
Okay. In the contract that you had with the state, the contract said that you were to make a co-payment, right?
Right.
You did not make the co-payment.
Right. But that's because we had a verbal agreement to not pay.
Oh, well, I want to hear about the verbal agreement you had with Mrs. Irwin not to pay her $169 a month.
Okay. Basically, the verbal agreement was that I was going to use this money that I didn't pay her towards extra bills around the house. What bills? Such as water, sewage, power, rent.
So what you're telling me is you paid the water bill?
Part of it.
No, you're...
Of course you paid part of the water bill, sir. You were living there.
Correct.
I would expect you to pay part of the water bill. What else?
I paid cable, power.
Just a second. You paid it, the whole thing, or part of it?
Half of it, actually. She paid a quarter.
That's a lie.
Just a second.
That is a bull-faced lie, David.
Miss Irwin.
You knew
Miss Irwin, do you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, Your Honor, I do. But
good.
Will I get my opportunity to talk?
No, not unless I ask you a question. This is not a tea dance. You don't open up your mouth and start to talk to him unless I ask you a question. Do we understand each other, Miss Irwin?
Yes, I
good.
do.
Now,
but this man's lying.
You want to walk out of here?
No, Your Honor.
So you paid for what you minimally were supposed to pay for. Why would she agree that you not pay the $169 a month, Mr. Berlin, if you were paying only those portions of the bills that were rightfully yours?
Because, Your Honor, the verbal agreement we had in the beginning was that the $169 that I was to pay for the copay was only to be verbally not paid if she was to be paid by the state.
Mr. Berlin, that's a lot of double talk you just gave me.
Okay.
During the time that you were staying with Miss Irwin, did you have a substance abuse problem?
Not at all.
Not at all?
No.
Ever? Did you ever have a
lie?
Shh. Miss Irwin? Miss Irwin? Did you ever have a substance abuse problem, Mr. Berlin?
Nope. I drank alcohol every now and then, but that's it. Not a problem.
It was never a problem?
No, ma'am.
Okay. She babysat for you for 4 months? Times. $169 equals $676, sir, because that was the agreement that you signed with the state. Now, let's get to the next part. The next part is Miss Irwin says that she bought furniture for your child, not the child that you share with her grandchild, but for your child, because otherwise the state would not give you your child.
Right.
So she went out and she purchased furniture with an understanding that you would repay her.
May I say something, Your Honor?
Did she buy the furniture?
She did, but she
How
went
much
out
did
and
she
bought
pay
it.
for the furniture?
I don't know the exact
How much did you pay for the furniture, Miss Irwin?
The total amount of the furniture. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I've got a cold and I've got a lot of paperwork here that we need to resolve. Because
no, we don't have a lot of paperwork. All we have is how much did you pay for the furniture, Miss Irwin?
Well, I am not a calculator. I did not add it all up. I listed each article. I bought a potty chair for the child from Walmart.
How much?
$7. A bed and dresser at a yard sale. The bed was $30. The dresser was $25. Very nice ones.
Go ahead.
A small television for her to watch cartoons on, which there was no cable put in that room for that child to be able to watch any television.
Miss Irwin, I asked you a question. I don't expect you to talk to him.
And $65 worth of clothes.
$127.
Right.
May I say something, Your Honor? She went out and purchased all that stuff without ever consulting me
Did you
about
need that stuff for your daughter to come and live with you?
Not necessarily, no.
What do you mean not necessarily? She didn't need a bed?
Of course she needed a bed, but I could have got...
She didn't need a dresser?
Yes, ma'am.
They would not have allowed the child to move in with you. You have one parent who is neglecting the child. They're not going to allow a child to come and move in with you unless they see that you have the provisions for the child. Correct?
Correct.
So somebody was going to have to furnish the child with a bed and a dresser.
Right.
Who would that be?
I could have done it, Your Honor.
But you didn't.
I would have done it on my next paycheck.
So when you got your next paycheck, you should have given her back the money. She bought it. $127, very cheap, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good.
Your Honor, could I say one thing?
No.
Well, it's very important to know...
I don't want to hear you. So far, you're not losing.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Irwin says her granddaughter's ex-boyfriend owes for babysitting co-payments. Ruth says the state paid its share, and now David needs to pay his.
Miss Irwin, you're suing him for the furniture that you bought, the children's clothing that you bought, and the $169 times 4 that he was supposed to pay in a copay. So far, you're not losing. There's no need for me to hear you, except irritate me.
But I have some very important evidence here, Your Honor, that needs to be said. I threw this guy out of the house.
I'm not interested. You want to tell somebody about why you threw him out of the house? Go on Jerry Springer. This case involves two things. Look at me. Stop looking at your papers. It involves two things and two things only. Whether he's responsible for the $169 for 4 months, the answer is yes. And whether he's responsible for the baby furniture, and the answer is yes. Now, you, sir, have 30 seconds or less to explain to me your counterclaim, which, if I get it correctly, you say because she threw you out of the house, uncross your arms, because she threw you out of the house, you lost custody of your daughter. So you want all kinds of pain, suffering, and anguish. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Go to it.
Okay, well, first of all, she threw me out of the house because she claimed that I was depressed, so I went to go check it out. I called, and she says to never come back again. So basically, after that, I was basically homeless, and I had to say that I couldn't take care of my daughter because I was basically homeless. So because of that, she still has a lot of my property, such as this TV right here in this picture, which I have a receipt, which I bought a new one with.
Which anguish is that?
And
in what category does the TV come under mental anguish?
Basically, she still has some of my property. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, is your lawsuit mental anguish, or is it your property?
It's both, Your Honor.
Well, let's start with the anguish.
Okay. Well, the anguish basically is she made me lose custody of my daughter.
No.
And
she didn't make you lose custody of your daughter. The state took the child away.
Well, she basically kicked me out. That's how I lost custody of my daughter. I would have kept having custody of my daughter if I stayed in that place.
She didn't want you there anymore.
I understand that, Your Honor, but I was living there, and there was no reason why I should have been kicked out in the first place.
Why do you think she kicked you out, Mr. Berlin?
Because she thought I had depression, which I did, because she made life very unbearable there for me.
So she thought you were suffering from depression. She didn't want you in the house anymore, and you acknowledge that you were suffering from depression, but you say you were suffering from depression because she was making life intolerable for you with the house.
Absolutely. She's a very bitter woman, Your Honor.
Bitter. Well, then I wouldn't want to live with her. So I don't want to hear anything unless I ask you a question. Do you understand? Good. If she's making your life unbearable, You take your child and you move. That's
Yes.
what you do.
Yes, ma'am.
You
But-
don't sue for it.
Okay.
She's not responsible for keeping you in her house, nor is she responsible for the state taking your child away. Is the child now back with her mother?
Yes, ma'am.
So the state had an option of giving the child back to her mother, who was a drug abuser, or you, who was depressed. Is that right?
I believe so.
That
yes.
was the choice. That was some choice. All right. Now let's get to the television set. May I see a photograph, please,
Yes,
of the
ma'am.
television set?
This is the actual picture of the television set right here, but the back of it is a receipt that I replaced it with a new television because, well, basically I gave up hope of receiving my television again.
Listen to me.
Yeah.
I want to see the bill where you purchased this television set.
I don't have that, Your Honor.
When did you purchase it?
It was October of 2003.
Okay. You have that television set, Miss Irwin?
No, I don't, Your
Or
Honor.
is
Yes,
it?
yes, you do.
No, I do not have the
Not
TV,
ma-
Your Honor, because that was purchased between him and my granddaughter. They each shared that cost.
Just answer my question, Miss Irwin. Where is the television?
You know, it's in the living room.
Okay. Just a second. Where's your granddaughter?
In the living room, probably watching it. She paid for half of it.
Just a
No,
second.
she did not.
Just a second.
You got proof?
Miss Irwin, you don't understand what I'm saying to you, madam. Put the papers down. Don't speak to him.
He's a parasite, Your Honor.
Don't speak to him. And only answer my questions. Other than that, I don't want to hear you. Now, Mr. Berlin, you don't have a receipt for this television set indicating that you purchased it?
No, ma'am, I bought it.
You don't get it. You have to give her $803, Mr. Berlin. That is for 4 months of copay on the child care and your daughter's furniture, which she purchased, which she has no particular use for, with the understanding that the reason she purchased it was because the state was not going to permit you to retain or to gain custody of your 2-year-old unless you had a bed and a dresser, which she furnished and which, according to you, you were going to purchase with your next paycheck. And when you got your next paycheck, you should have given her the money back for it. That's the decision of the court. And for your mental anguish, you get a Zippo. Nada. You lost custody of your child because you were ill-equipped to take care
No,
of her.
Your
That's the
Honor.
only reason. And unless you're quiet, you're going to get nothing. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $803. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Got what you deserve, David. Nothing. Totally nothing. David didn't get called out for his misbehavings, but justice was served.
She's a very bitter old woman. She needs to come to her senses and stop being so bitter.
It's his virgin. I'm not an alcoholic. I drink a fifth a week.
Stay away from this woman over here.
You know, he's called until I'm committing suicide. Final thoughts is he'd do the state a blessing.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Trathan versus Riffit, step forward, please.
Maintenance technician Joseph Trathan is suing his ex-girlfriend, inventory auditor Joelle Riffit, for the balance on a Dodge Stratus. Joelle claims the vehicle is Joseph's responsibility.
Mr. Trathan, according to your complaint, the defendant, who was your girlfriend, you have a child together, owes you for some money for a car.
Yes.
And Miss Riffit, I don't know. I tried to figure out her answer, but it was all kind of very soft. She says you agreed to assume the losses for the car when you sold it. However, we're going to ferret out the truth. When did you purchase this car along with Miss Riffit? In what year?
I co-signed, I believe, in 01.
When did you buy the car?
June of 2000,
What kind of car did you buy?
a Dodge Stratus.
It was your car.
Yes.
And he co-signed the loan because you couldn't get it without his co-signature. Is that right?
We actually were both on the loan equally. It was
Because you couldn't get it by yourself.
a lower interest that way.
Because you couldn't get it by yourself.
Yes.
And you kept the car from June of 2000 until when?
April 2004.
And what did you do with it?
Well, what happened was I left the house. I left him in October, and I tried maintaining the payments.
October of 2003.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was doing it. I had an apartment on my own, and I was trying to raise both my children. And I was having a hard time struggling making the payments because they were $330. And we had discussed it, and I asked him if he can help me out by taking the car because I can't afford it no more, so I can get a less expensive car. And the day before I gave it back to him, I called him and said, hey, Nissan called me, and they said they got a car for me for $4,500, which made my payments to be $170. Are you still willing to take it? Because I still had one more day to tell Nissan I didn't want it if I didn't if he didn't agree. So he said, yeah, that's fine. We made arrangements. I dropped it off the car, and I put both sets of keys underneath the driver's seat. And after that, after I dropped it off on the 30th, I thought everything was done and fine. We were on good terms. I wasn't expecting any of this.
How much child support does he pay?
He pays me $205 now, but at the time...
Don't tap.
Okay.
$205 a what?
A week.
And how much child support do you get from the father of your other child?
$100 a week.
So you get twice that from him.
Now.
What were you getting before?
He was only giving me $100 a week.
And when did it double?
September.
Put your hand down.
September.
You're the girlfriend?
I'm the fiance, ma'am.
Fiance. We don't need you. We don't need to hear from you.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Good.
On September 27th, we went to court, and that's when they distinguished $205 a week.
Now, sir, Ms. Riffett says that you agreed to take... Stop shaking your head. You look like making me seasick. Ms. Riffett says that you agreed to take the car and sell it. I assume sell it. Is that right?
No.
Well, tell me what you agreed to do.
I agreed to try to help her sell the car. I talked to my neighbors and people at work, try to get rid of the car if I could.
Well, when she told you she wanted to get rid of the car, what did you say to her?
I said I would try... Yeah, I would say I would try to help you get rid of the car if I could. If I can't, that's your responsibility. It was your car. I'm not going to take the loss.
You told her that? You told her those things?
Yes.
Yeah.
I said it's not my...
And what happened when she dropped the car off with the keys at your house?
Well, I didn't want to take on the responsibility of the extra car payment, or if I couldn't make it, going against my credit. So I gave myself like a month time limit to try to get rid of it, because my neighbor was talking to her mom about trying to buy it. And then she got a hold of me. I couldn't sell to her, so I went to CarMax, see how much they could offer to me for it.
Why did you try to sell it privately, put an ad in the paper?
Because I didn't want to continue making the payments. And also, if she's saying she couldn't afford it, when she moved out of the house, we split the equity in the house. I gave her a $10,000 check for the equity of the house several months later, which she knew she was going to get money for that.
You shouldn't have taken the car, sir. You have to have a contract with her.
I didn't take it. She left it on me.
Not have taken the car. You should have taken it back to her with the keys and said, this is your problem. This is your car. You've had it for 4 years. I'm not doing anything with it. But once you assume the responsibility by trying to sell it and then going ahead and selling it to somebody else, you can't come back against her for the difference. You didn't have a contract with her.
I was trying to do her a favor. That's it.
That's fine. You did her a favor. You did do her a favor.
Yeah.
Then what are you bothering me for?
Because, and then she's saying she couldn't afford it, but she, gave it to me in April? That's 5 months later.
You have to have a contract with her. An agreement, oral, written. And the oral or written agreement says, if you sell the car at a loss, I will pay the difference. You didn't have that contract with her.
No, but I know I couldn't let it sit there and not have anyone make payments on it. She could give me half the money.
What happens, sir, is that after she stops making payments, they're going to repossess the car. If she let that happen. Now, she may not have let that happen because she has a job and she doesn't want her credit destroyed. But once you assume the responsibility by selling the car without a contract, oral or written, with her, you cannot then come to court and say, well, she should have done this. She should have made the payments. She should not have put me in that position. She should not have dropped the car off at my house. She dropped the car off, you took the car, and you sold it. That's your problem.
But I was trying to do the right thing.
Good.
And I didn't want it affecting my credit. It would have been too late if I would have waited for something like that.
I have to tell you, sir, I'm very sympathetic with you. You should not have done it. This is a court. Courts deal with contracts. You did not have a contract with her.
I have contracts on how much I paid
Sorry.
on it.
Parties are excused. They step out.
I was trying to do the right thing, trying to help her out, do her a favor. And in turn, she turned around and screwed me, and I guess that's what I get for doing that.
I think he took it upon himself. He didn't give me the car back, and that's not my problem anymore.
She screwed me on the house. She screwed me on the car.
He had no car payment at the time. He was giving me $100 a week. That's the least he could have done.
She's done everything she can. She's gotten every little dime she could get from me on the house, the car.
Hopefully, this will be the final thing, and we can actually be parents to my child now.
Appraiser Paul Tumber is suing his ex-wife, Stephanie Sotenko, and her new husband, Ed Sotenko, for a loan to pay her mortgage and for his share of a vehicle.
Now this is case number 420 on the calendar in the matter of Tumber versus Sotenko. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Mr. Tumber, this is your former wife and her present husband. And the two of you have been divorced for some time. You have a 17-year-old son. I assume that that is this young man over here.
That's
is that
correct.
right? According to the complaint that I've read, recently, after your divorce and after your former wife was remarried, she ran into some financial difficulty and called you and asked you for a loan. You obliged, according to you, advanced her some money, I think $750.
That's correct.
You want the money back.
Correct.
And in addition, your former wife and her husband purchased a car for your son.
Correct.
And you invested some money in that car in repairing it.
Correct.
Then you decided to buy your son a newer car. And according to you, there was an understanding that they would reimburse you when they sold the old car for the money that you had invested in it so that you could sort of put it towards the new car that you were buying from them.
Correct.
They sold the car and they didn't give you the money that you had invested in it.
Correct.
So you also want that money.
Correct.
Okay. When did your former wife call you for this initial loan?
It was around the beginning of this year, but around January.
What happened? You ran into some
2004.
financial difficulty?
The financial difficulty wasn't about me necessarily. It was regarding my son and expenses that we had with the car, with medical, and with a phone bill.
What do you mean the car? What kind of expenses?
Okay, the car that we purchased for my son was a car that we knew.
I don't care what you knew. You had expenses because you had to have it fixed?
Yes.
And how much did you need to have the car fixed?
There were different parts that we needed to buy. My husband did the repairs.
So you spent some of the money that he gave you to fix the car?
Correct.
How much?
The total that we spent on the repairs, just the parts alone of the receipts I could find,
Yes.
was $224
Okay.
and 3 cents
$224 to fix the car.
for the parts.
Fine. I don't care what your husband's labor was. That's not important to me. What else did you need money for?
My son had a cell bill.
Who bought him a
He-
cell phone?
I did.
So why was it your former husband's responsibility?
It wasn't, except for my son went over the minutes, and he did this more than one occasion.
Did your former wife tell you, Mrs. Satango, tell you that this money she was asking you for was for your son?
No, Your Honor, she
What did
didn't.
she tell you?
It was for mortgages on the home that she was in arrears of. It was
Were you in
for-
arrears on your mortgage?
I was never in arrears on my mortgage.
Did you tell him that you needed money to pay your mortgage?
I told him that I couldn't pay the mortgage and everything else, that my son's cell bill was so much money, my son's medical bills that the insurance didn't cover was so much money.
You pay child support, sir?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
How much do you pay?
Just shy of $600 a month, I believe.
Okay. How much money did you
Your
give?
Honor, that's not true.
How much does he give you?
$370 a month.
How do you account for the discrepancy, Mr. Tumba?
I'm not sure how much I pay, to be honest with you, Your Honor.
So why don't you say, I'm not
Spent-
sure? I don't know is something
Yeah,
that a man
well,
can say.
I don't know.
3 little words.
I don't know.
don't know.
Correct, thank you.
Well, you should know how much child support you pay. Do you pay it pursuant to income deduction order? Or do you-
Yes,
So it comes right out of your pay?
right out of my check, yes.
So it's not 600, it's 370 a month, according to you. Is that what you receive, or do you receive more if there is some in arrears?
$370 a month, Your Honor.
Period.
Period.
Okay, fine. How much money did you loan to her, sir?
$750.
And that's not true, Your Honor.
Show me.
Your Honor, I'd like to
You have a
submit.
check?
Yes,
Let me see it,
canceled
please.
checks with her signature on them.
Your Honor, he could have written anything in after the fact.
No, I'm just looking at the canceled checks, madam. And I'm even looking for the memo. Memo is irrelevant. You owe him $750. I think it's very nice that you can call him and say, listen, I ran into some financial difficulties and I need some money and your son lives with me, so could you do it for me?
But, Your Honor, that's not how it happened.
Did you sell the car? We're
Yes,
going to
we
get to the
sold the
car
car.
now.
But-
Just a second. We're going to get to the car. You and your husband bought a car. You bought a car for your son. And according to you, some of the money that you got from him was used to fix the car.
Correct.
Right. Then you sold the car.
Correct.
How much money did you give him?
There-
I just answer my question. How
Zero.
much money did you
Zero.
give him? Zero. How much did you sell the car for?
$1,000.
Well, if he paid for the parts to fix the car, why didn't you think it was appropriate that if he was buying your son a new car, for you not to at least reimburse him for what he had spent? Don't you think that that's appropriate? Fair? Reasonable? If I believe you, Mrs. Satango, if I believe you, you were able to call your former husband and say to him despite the fact that you are under a court order and pay child support, it's not enough. Because I have some bills that I'm having trouble paying for our son. He went over his minutes on a cell phone that I bought him. That's not his fault. You choose to buy him a cell phone, 17-year-old kid, and he's not responsible enough? That's not his father's problem, because you provided him with the vehicle to be irresponsible. But he was, according to you, he was a nice guy and said, here's the money. According to you, he was a nice guy when you say, I had to fix the car and I need some parts. According to you, he was a nice guy. Gave you the money. According to you, despite the fact that he pays child support and is not in arrears, he had some unreimbursed medical bills, and he said, here's the money. So I'm asking you, if he was a nice guy, how come when you sold the car and he was buying him a new car, you didn't say, here's the money that you laid out for the parts?
The car was bought because the car that we bought for my son wasn't good enough, wasn't cool enough. They bought the car. I had nothing to do with that, neither did my husband. We have endured financial difficulty. We did not say that we were going to give him the money. It wasn't for my son to barter. It wasn't for him to barter. We paid the mortgage with the money, and that's the circumstance we're under right now.
So why didn't you just say that to me instead of giving me a whole lot of who shot John? You paid the mortgage. You borrowed money from him and paid a mortgage.
I thought you knew that. I'm sorry.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Ex-wife Stephanie Sotenko owes for a loan and for proceeds from the sale of their son's vehicle.
Listen, you're a nice guy and she owes you $750 because I believe it was a loan. Now, you tell me about the contract that you say you had with her with regard to paying you back for the money that you invested in the old car.
Okay, well, the verbal contract was that when the vehicle was sold, that I would recoup the money for the parts for the repairs, which I have canceled checks for right here.
Can I see them, please?
And there never was a
Who did you make?
I'm sorry?
Who did you make this contract with, sir?
With Stephanie.
Can I say something, Your Honor, or do I need to speak in turn? Or
No, now you tell me.
As far as the car, how many fathers give money toward repairs of their son's car and then ask for it back after the car is sold?
Well, let me tell you what usually happens. Usually, if boy has a car and if he wants a better car, and his parents, they are reasonable, say, listen, we'll sell this car, we'll use whatever money we get from this car, we'll put it towards another car. That's what parents do. What you did was you took money from your former husband, because these are your canceled checks.
I didn't take money toward
Yes, you did.
Your Honor, I did not ask him for the money for the parts for the car. He willingly gave me that money.
Because he's a nice guy.
So he was a nice guy and
Just
did that for our son.
Just a second, he's a nice guy.
And
you're supposed to be responsible. You're supposed to be moral. You're supposed to be a moral example for your child. You are not.
I am not?
No, you are not. You are not.
Okay.
Because if he is being a nice guy, what you're supposed to be is a moral example for your son and say, listen, we sold the car for $1,000. You put in practically that. I'm speaking. You put in practically that. I'll be more than happy to give that money towards the new car so that we will jointly, in some way, have contributed to the car that our son is driving. You chose not to do that. You owe him the money for the repairs to the car because I believe you had an agreement, if you sold the car, to give him back that money. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,595. That's it.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
If I had had the money, morally, I would have given the money.
I'm in a financial position. I don't make a lot of money, that I just wanted my funds back.
I didn't really want to be here, but I guess it's the best way to do it.
It's no love lost between my son and I.
Be sure that you know what and who you're dealing with.
Did we learn anything today? I don't really think so.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Pamphile versus Childers. Step forward, please.
25-year-old nurse's assistant Maiva Pamphile is suing the father of her child, 26-year-old construction worker Dell Childers, for a loan. Dell says after the death of their child, Maiva kept the insurance money.
Ms. Pamphile, the defendant was your boyfriend. You had 2 children together. Unfortunately, or sadly, I read in your complaint that one of your children died. One of your sons. How old was he when he died?
10 months old.
This case involves an alleged loan. You claim that you lent the defendant a little over $2,000 to purchase a car that needed some repairs. Mr. Childers says you're just being mean. You collected $10,000 when your son died. You didn't share that with him, even though he feels as if he could have asked you to share that with him. He paid a lot of money over the years to you, and there was never any agreement to repay this money. That's your defense, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just curious, was there an insurance policy on your son?
Yes, ma'am.
Who took out that policy?
I did, ma'am.
How much was the funeral for your son?
$5,000.
Tell me about this loan to Mr. Childers.
Dell and I, we've been together off and on since 1996. He moved in January 2004, and he started looking around for a car. He said that he wanted to help me and his other child's mother take care of his kids. So he wanted to get a car.
That's really nice of him.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He already owes $30,000 in child support, and I lent him $200 for a down payment so that he could secure the car, and he made arrangements with the owner to come back on the 10th when I could withdraw my money once I got paid again to give him another $2,100. So that was a total of $2,300. Once he got his car, he started coming in at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, not coming home. So, okay, I kicked him out because it wasn't working. So we waited a while. On the 24th, he kept calling me. He wanted to borrow some money to get an alternator.
How much more money did you give him?
Another $140.71 that I took out of my checking account using my debit card.
She used the word loan.
Just a second.
Those were...
Just shh. Do you owe her any money in child support?
I owe the state of California. I don't owe her. The whole time she had that policy out, the child support out on me, we were living together.
So, excuse me, what you're saying is during all the time that your children were born, the two of you were together, were living together?
Most of the time.
What happened when you weren't living with her? Were you sending her money for your boys?
No, but I was working and they were taking money out of my checks.
Do you have any proof of that, sir?
I didn't bring any today. I didn't think we would get that far into it.
How many children do you have?
I have 3.
3 living children. So you had 4.
I have 2 living children. I have 3 altogether.
So you have 2 living children, and now the 2 living children are living in 2 separate homes. You're not living in either one of them. Is that right?
I am living in my youngest child's life right now.
And
he
when
was
did you
cheating on me with her.
Shh. And when did you start to live with that woman?
2 weeks ago.
Mr. Childers, it is difficult enough, sir, to raise a child as a single parent. You're not supposed to make it more difficult. You're not supposed to drain money out of that household. You're supposed to put money into the household. Do you understand?
Yes, and I've done that.
I don't care what you've done in the past, sir. That's what you're supposed to do. You made 2 children with this lady. You know, that's your responsibility.
And it is.
Anything can have children. Fish, frogs, camels, elephants. A lot of things have children. Even those animals take care of their children until they're old enough to be out on their own. All I'm suggesting to you is, if you made 2 babies, it's your responsibility to put money into their households, if you're not living there, in order to help support them. They're not supposed to be a drain on the household. If you can't afford a car yourself, you don't buy it. You understand each other?
Yes.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,300. That's all.
Parties are excused when they step out.
I have another child, a 9-month-old with another woman. When we broke up, you know, that's why she wanted to give me back for all the money she so-called gave me.
Instead of me getting the house that I wanted, I'm still living in an apartment complex that I don't want to live in.
That's an untrue statement. I didn't take a home away from her, you know. She kicked me out before we can actually build up more money to buy a home.
It just goes to show that you can't, no matter what, how much you care about somebody, you can't lend them money.
She can't have me, and that's just how it is.
Construction worker Ron King is suing his ex-fiancée, customer service rep Candy Oliveri, for a loan and an engagement ring. Candy is countersuing, claiming Ron has been harassing her.
This is case number 361 on the calendar, the matter of King versus Oliveri. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Mr. King, Miss Oliveri was your fiancée. That relationship terminated. You want the ring back, and you also want a loan that you made to her returned. In addition to that, you claim that she has harassed you. You want to be compensated for the harassment, and Miss Oliveri says that the ring was not an engagement ring, there was never a loan made, and that you, in fact, have been harassing her. She is counterclaiming. How long were you a couple?
About 5-6 months.
Had you ever been married before?
Yes.
How many times?
Twice.
How old are you?
42.
Who is this?
This is my girlfriend, Shelley.
You just roll right into... Don't let any moss grow, huh? So first, let me hear about the loans, sir. When did you make the loans to her? What were they for?
They were for her kids to get an apartment.
These your children?
Yes, they are.
Why did they have to get an apartment?
Well, I guess he got kicked out of his dad's house, and I guess her and her boyfriend split up, and then she was... Actually, Kenny was living with me for a while, then she brought her daughter in, then her grandson, then her other daughter.
Sounds to me like you got out just in time.
Yes.
So I wouldn't sue her, sir. I would say thank you and thank you, Lord. And be on my way.
Thank you, Lord.
I want you to tell me about the commitment that she made to you with regard to repaying the money.
When I lent her the money in June to get the apartment, it was for her kids. They were staying with me. And every month got longer and longer, and then in June, the guy called and said, yes, the apartment's ready. So on June 28th of '04, I lent her $300.
That's not so, Your Honor. It was not a loan. When I offered to pay it back, he said, no, whatever you need. And it was not for months on end that my oldest daughter and my grandson lived with Ron and I.
When you say you offered to pay it back, that suggests to me that there was an initial agreement to pay him back. So there was a time when he gave you this money that you intended to pay him back. That's what your statement suggests to me.
But we lived together and shared expenses.
You didn't share expenses for taking care of your children. These adult children are not his responsibility.
Right, no.
So you took the $300, and then you tried to give him the $300 back.
I offered.
Well, what do you mean you offered? You must have said to him, can you loan me the $300? And he said yes.
Whatever you need, were his words.
Okay. All right, Swifty, $300. Now, let me hear about the ring.
On August 1st, she looked for like 3.5 to 4 hours looking at a ring. Then she finally picked one out, and I proposed to her when we got the ring. And like 3 days later, after she got the ring, she came back from work saying, this ring's a piece of, you know, everyone has one just like it. I hate this ring. And then that day she said, I hate this house. You should have a nice new house, you know, or at least put a new front door on or something. My house is 1940, but it's my house anyways.
What'd the ring look like, Mr. King?
Had 3 stones.
What kind of stones?
Diamonds.
Where's the ring?
On my finger.
Can I see it, please?
Sure.
What did he say to you when he gave you the ring, Miss Oliveri?
The initial plan was to go and find a ring, to have a ring on my finger before we actually ordered a ring that we were going to have customized at another jeweler. So this was just something for the mere fact that we were going to be married in June of 2005.
Looks like a nice engagement ring to me.
I have the actual drawing of the ring that we both went to look at.
When did you go to look at another ring? After you bought this one or before?
Well before, in May.
And did he ever purchase that ring?
No.
Good, because he purchased this one. Who paid for this?
I am paying for it.
Good, you get it. Give it back to him. Now you got it.
Thank you.
And you have $300.
Thank you.
You want to get to the harassment, sir?
Me? Yes. On September 18th, I went to her house to pick up the ring and the money.
Why did you do that?
She told me to come to her house. If I wanted my stuff, I was supposed to go to her house and pick it up.
What stuff?
I have a little bit of clothes there, like a sweatshirt and stuff like that.
Your Honor, that's not so.
Just a second, I'll get to you in a minute. Go ahead.
So I went there to pick it up. When I got there, they didn't want to answer the door, and I could hear the little baby in there. And then her daughter said, my mom's not here. I called the police or whatever, and I said, okay, you know, I just came to get my stuff that I was told to get. Then I guess she filed a restraining order on me the next day. And on Monday, she called my employer, and here's a letter from my employer that she called my employer harassing me at work, too. And she's the one who did the harassing, not me.
Why did you call his job?
Just to inform Human Resources of the type of person that we were dealing with.
They were dealing with the same person who's been employed by them for 25 years. Evidently, they have not had a problem.
Outside of work, he's a totally different person.
That may be, But I don't see any reason for you to call his place of employment, where he's been employed for almost a quarter of a century, unless you're just being spiteful and miserable.
Not at all.
Not at all. Not
being
spiteful, not miserable.
Not at all.
Uh-huh. All right.
I also have police logs on the two situations that took place, the 18th and the 19th.
I'll take a look at it.
And I have the actual restraining order if you'd like to take a look at it as well.
Is it a final order?
Yes, it is, for
Can
1
I
year.
see it? Did you have a trial, Mr. King?
Yes.
And after the trial, the judge entered a restraining order telling you to stay away from her house.
Actually, I was like, they had jury duty that day, and there was a big line, so I was late getting into the courtroom.
Yeah.
And so I never heard nothing from the judge. They just gave me that paper.
So you did not have a trial?
No.
So there was a default because you didn't show up?
Yes.
Well,
and on that case,
yeah,
she has a friend who's a judge over there in Rancho Cucamonga. He called my house on the 20th to tell me to appear in court on the 21st.
That was not a judge, Your Honor. He was to be subpoenaed over the telephone.
Are you telling me that someone notified him a day in advance to appear in court?
That was for the initial, not for the actual hearing. That was for from the 18th and
Listen
the 19th.
to me, Mr. King. I'm not sure what kind of a vindictive person she is. So if the reason you didn't appear here was because you got stuck on the line or because you had another valid reason, I would ask that this case be reopened, because if she doesn't have the basis for a restraining order, you don't want a restraining order hanging around for a year. Do you understand? It's totally up to you.
Yes, ma'am.
You got it? Oh. Now you want to tell me about the harassment?
Yes, it was on September 18th.
That he came to your house?
Right. Tried to open up my door. They threw a substance on my car. There was a police report, and it's also on your desk there.
I want to see who saw him throw a substance on your car.
We did not see because my car was parked to the left
I
of
want
my...
to know is I want a witness who saw him throw something on your car. And you didn't have anybody?
No.
Oh, good.
The children were a witness of the threat that his girlfriend Shelley shouted out.
That has nothing to do with him.
She was there.
Who
She
cares?
did it as well, and him trying to open up my front door.
He wanted to get his stuff back, Ms. Oliveri. Your counterclaim is dismissed on the complaint. Judgment for the plaintiff. He has his property back and also $300. Thank you. That's good.
Thank you.
Why does that excuse me? Step out.
She told me to come to her house to pick it up. I went there to pick it up, and then she filed a restraining order on me.
It was a shock to me 2 days later when I came home and he wasn't there.
They thought that she was my mom and threatened to kill her and all kinds of stuff.
A bunch of lies, and she was trying to get me for what she could.
Case.
All parties in the matter of Garrett versus Cook. Step forward, please.
Hotel clerk Alan Garrett is suing the mother of his child, 27-year-old student Candace Cook, for the unpaid balance on a Toyota Supra. Candace says shortly after taking ownership, the engine died.
Mr. Garrett, the defendant is your former girlfriend and you have a child together. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Well, we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend, but we had a relationship, yes.
Well, you weren't her math teacher, right?
No, ma'am.
You weren't her plumber, right?
No, ma'am.
In a classic sense. You had a relationship. She was a girlfriend or something.
Yes, ma'am.
You had a child together.
Yes, ma'am.
You have custody of that child.
Yes, ma'am.
And you've always had custody of that child.
Yes, ma'am.
How old is the child?
A year and a half.
Boy or a girl?
Boy.
According to your complaint, you sold Miss Cook a car.
Correct.
Back in March. It was an old car, a car that you were not using. You sold her the car for $600.
Correct.
And she acknowledges that that's what happened, correct?
Yes, he gave me a car. Well, I mean, he didn't give it to me, but it was agreed to pay for it eventually.
You don't have any other children, do you?
I have an older child, yes.
Where is that child?
With my mother.
How old is that child?
9.
What do you do?
I'm a student at this time. I'm just now getting back to school and trying to get things together.
Where are you a student?
I'm at the Richland Community College.
Anyway, in March you sold her the car for how much, sir?
$600.
And according to what I read in your complaint, you did that because she wasn't visiting your son regularly and you really wanted her to be able to visit him.
Correct.
She had the car from March, is that right? Until September, is that right?
Yes, around that
I mean, are you together? Is there something wrong?
We're not. No, I'm just... He didn't said it wasn't for visit. It was because he said he wanted me to get a job and everything else.
Job would be nice here.
And so, you know,
job would be nice. What do you do? You have 2 children. Somebody else takes care of both of your children. You should be working. Who is this?
This is my roommate.
This is your roommate. Do you work?
Yes, I do.
Good. What kind of a job do you have?
I'm a computer technician.
What are your hours of work?
It's usually afternoon 1 to 10 p.m.
That's a full day. Do you have, I'm speaking, do you have children?
No, I do not.
So you support yourself?
Yes.
That's what people do when they have themselves to take care of, or in your roommate's case, when she has 2 children that are being supported by other people. They get a job. Now you can sit down. Perfect. Now, she ran the car and had the car in her possession until September, when, according to you, what happened to the car?
The engine blew, so I parked it. And then I called him and said, it's calling. I'm going to call a junkyard. And then once I get that money, I'll give you the money that I get from the junkyard. Well, I get a call from some guy I don't even know, never met, never anything, saying he's going to come get the car that Alan told him to come and get it. So that's where it turns up. I gave the car to somebody else. I don't even have
somebody
it.
to pick up the car?
A friend of mine that I had originally got the car from expressed interest in it. I told him the story about what had happened to it. For whatever reason, he was interested in the car. I said, well, if you want to talk to her about it, I'll give you her phone number, and I passed that information along so he could call her.
But he didn't give you the car. Did he give you any money for the car?
No, ma'am.
No. So you're at your $600. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Good, good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all. Get a job.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I thought the judgment was fair, kind of what I expected.
Well, I don't agree with it because his friend has the car.
Went quick. There wasn't much to say.
I drove the car for a while, but he wasn't driving it anyway.
I'm pretty poor and I needed my money.
We'll probably still be friends.
I have no hard feelings at all.
Angela Marie is suing her daughter, set painter Lisa Kales, for a series of unpaid loans. Lisa says her mother abandoned her when she was a child.
All rise. Yes, it's case number 326 on the calendar in the matter of Marie versus Kales. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Miss Marie, the defendant is your daughter. And it is your claim that she was disabled, and while she was waiting for her disability to come through, her Social Security disability,
yes,
you loaned her money, and when she got her retroactive money, she did not reimburse you for the monies you had loaned to her. Your daughter says that you did in fact help her while she was waiting for her disability to come through. You did so because you were her mother, because you had not been much of a mother previously to her, and there was never any arrangement between the two of you for payback of the money that you advanced her while she was sick. Okay. How many children do you have, Miss Marie?
Your Honor, I have 3.
How old are they?
In their 30s.
How old is the defendant?
34.
Did they always live with you when they were young?
I raised them until while I was working, they were 3 children from hell. I mean, what they were...
Could you just answer my question? Were they living with you, or were
Yes.
they not living with you during
Absolutely.
all their minority?
I was taking full responsibility for them.
You want to answer my question?
Till I was 10 years old.
And where did you go when you were 10?
She took my brothers and I to my aunt's house, and we stayed there for 2 or 3 years, and I never went back after that. Group homes, foster homes, friends.
So after the time you were 10 years old, you did not live with your mother?
No.
Are you the older of the children? Or?
I'm the youngest.
And how old are your brothers and sisters?
36 and 38.
What's the nature of your disability?
Bilateral carpal tunnel.
Did you have surgery?
Yes.
Didn't work?
No.
All right, Miss Marie, you want to tell me about the money that you allegedly loaned to your daughter?
Okay, I have been supporting her because she's not been able to keep a job. I kept giving her money, and she promised to pay me back. A car was involved. Besides loaning her money, I have given her. I've bought her.
I just want to know about the loans, Miss Marie.
It's a running tab, Your Honor. She started the tab in her handwriting and said, from now on, whatever I borrow, you keep the receipts and you put it on the tab.
Let me see.
There's 3 things on this list from 1997.
Can I see it, please?
That's what she started. Progressively, we added more things on. I left half this. This is a fraction of what I've given her over the years, Your Honor.
Who cares?
She's my mother.
Shh. Who cares? I want to know what's a loan. I want to see evidence.
$600.
Listen to me. I want to see evidence of a loan. If you have children, that's what you do. they can't take care of themselves and they're going through a difficult time, and you support them, you take them into your home, you buy them clothes, you take them out to dinner, you pay for the phone. That's not a loan. I don't know what you have in your mind with this being a loan. I want to see evidence of a loan. This says Lisa owes mom $150, $600, $120, and a car with a question mark. I mean, I have a Ralph's food bill.
All these receipts are from grocery stores.
Just a second.
Kmart.
I have Ralph's food bill.
She told me to put these on the loan. Your Honor, I'm not wealthy. I was giving her money that I was paying for. Sometimes I would get paid maybe $200, $300. I was giving her money. $600 for furniture. I was buying her furniture. I was supporting her, and her promise to me is that when she got a settlement, we changed the agreements from whenever she could afford it. See, I was helping her get settled in California. I paid her bills. She lived with me. The fact that I never abandoned her, Your Honor, that is so untrue. Her father came into my life and says that...
I'm not interested in what happened 30 years ago. All I'm saying to you, madam,
But it's not 30 years ago. She thinks I abandoned her. That never happened.
Did she live with you when she was 12?
No. The social services came in and took the kids away, Your Honor.
What I'm telling you, madam, is social service came in.
Because I was working.
Oh, please. Miss Marie, get your life together. Take this.
Your Honor.
Show me evidence of a loan. I want to see evidence of a loan to your daughter.
Can I say something?
What?
There was no cash. She didn't hand me cash money. It was like a favor for a favor. I didn't want to say this, but my mother's homeless. She lives in a van. She hasn't had a residence. So I'm unable to support her financially, so I help her in other ways. She needs a place to stay. She's always had keys to my apartment, to shower, to get on the internet, to use the telephone, Your Honor, whatever she needs. It's like a favor for a favor. She would say, I'll take you to the grocery store if you let me come over and take a shower or use the phone.
I know. Listen to me.
That's what it is.
That's not the truth, Your Honor.
Listen to
Please.
me. Miss Marie, I want to see evidence that you as a mother had an agreement, a contract with your daughter so that any monies that you either advanced her or times you took her to the shoe store or to Ralph's grocery store, that there was an intention to pay back. Show me.
The parts that I've highlighted is her admitting that this was, she was going to pay me back.
Well, the first letter says that this is about the car that you mentioned, and she says that happened 7 years ago. We had no agreement. Nothing was signed. You were helping me out because I'm your daughter. And the second letter that you show me is you have written here October 2003. You say you have done and still are doing a lot of wonderful things for me. Please don't think it goes unappreciated. Does that sound familiar to you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I have every intention of paying you back. My plan is to pay you all at once out of my settlement. You've been so patient about the whole situation, and I thank you for that. I am sure it's been very difficult. If you could just hold out a little longer until my case settles, I promise you will be completely reimbursed.
My case hasn't settled. You have to say something to this woman or she will come slash her tires or take you to court.
I beg your
Or
no.
she'll get you.
No.
She will get you.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Angela Marie claims her daughter, Lisa Kales, owes for many unpaid loans. Angela says she is currently homeless.
Go ahead.
This has been the most abusive situation I've ever been in my life, and I never allowed her abuse to keep me from giving to her. I was at her beck and call. I was her doctor. I was her therapist. I did everything.
You're my mother.
I'm stunned.
Listen to me.
These are letters telling how much he has abused me over the years and has lied about this. It would be nice to think that we could walk around the park and could solve all our problems, but I see that I am the cause of all our problems, so maybe I need to go walking alone. Yeah. I mean, Lisa is lying. I can read forever. If you give me an hour, it's not enough.
I don't have an hour.
I know,
what I'm asking
but I'm
you,
trying to tell you that this woman is lying, Your Honor. A mother is obligated to their children to the age of 18.
I'm speaking, and you're not getting...
I've been supporting her for
1, 2...
Okay.
And then you're gone. How do you support yourself? I'm asking you a question. How do you support yourself?
Up until about 2 years ago, a transcriptionist.
How do you support yourself now?
Now I have been disabled. I have been borrowing from General Relief. I had to pay that all back. I have been certified. I went to a hearing. I'm certified disabled for several things. And
listen to me very carefully. If you've been giving your daughter money, and if you've been helping her for the last 2 years with money that you have gotten.
Not
from
2 years.
Listen to me. I'm speaking. Carefully. You just told me that up until 2 years ago you were employed as a transcriptionist. Since that time you have not been employed. You were receiving general relief. You were receiving disability. So if you supported your daughter over the last 2 years, you were supporting her. Since you have to say when you get general relief that you have no income and you have no money, you were supporting her out of state money. You were supporting her out of money that comes from the general population. I don't understand why a mother, if her daughter is disabled, if her daughter is ill,
not disabled.
if her daughter...
She's not disabled.
Well, neither am I. Your case is dismissed. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step
I
out.
can't believe that it came to this. I have been everything to this girl, and I've been giving her all my money, and she's laughing there.
I was kind of hoping that she would win because she's not going to let it go. I want a restraining order now.
She has been coercing me by being nice to me to get more money out of me.
We try, we don't get along. We get along, we don't get along.
There is no relationship. There hasn't been one. I asked her to please go get counseling. I realize now that I'm going to need it also.
Maybe we could, but I don't see us speaking again.
22-year-old landscaper Robert Tony Strong is suing his ex-fiancée, 18-year-old activities director Camille Ramos, for crashing his Buick Regal and for impound fees. Camille says she wrecked the car because she was fleeing from Robert after he threatened to kill her.
Yeah, this is case number 293 on the calendar, the matter of Strong versus Ramos. You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat, please.
Mr. Strong, how long did you and Miss Ramos live together?
For approximately almost 2 months.
And how long did you date prior to living together?
I'd say about 9 months.
It is your claim that after an argument, that Miss Ramos got into your car, drove it erratically, drove into a fence, and wrecked your car.
Correct.
You want her to pay for the damage. Ms. Ramos says that she got into your car because she was escaping an assault by you. And yes, she did go into a fence, but it was because she was fleeing the apartment because you were assaulting her. When did this happen?
August 19th, 2004.
Tell me about it, Mr. Strong.
Your Honor, that day I came home from work. We had gotten to a verbal argument.
About what?
About money.
What about money?
Basically, we didn't have no money.
So what were you arguing with each other about? Why don't you go get a job?
I had a job, Your Honor.
And she?
She was not working at the time.
So were you arguing with her because she didn't have a job?
She was arguing with me because I was not making enough money, not supporting us enough. Then we kept arguing. I told her I was going to leave the apartment, went to go get my clothes from my bedroom.
You mean you were leaving her?
No, I was leaving the apartment for the night.
Oh, just for the evening?
Just for the evening.
Okay.
So everything calmed down. Went to go grab my clothes. As soon as I did that, she darted out the door, jumped in the car, and wrecked it, Your Honor.
Okay, can I see pictures of the car, please?
Yes, ma'am. Here's all the evidence right here. Just pictures. There's also pictures in there of her damage, Your Honor.
Now, after she darted out of the apartment into the car, what did you do?
I seen her getting into the car from our bedroom. I ran downstairs. By that time, she was already in the car, leaving the apartment recklessly, driving. I ran after her to tell her to stop. As soon as I started to run, she wrecked. I ran over there to see if she was all right. About that time, she ran out the passenger door, ran into the other side of the apartment complex. About that time, I got arrested.
Got arrested for what?
I got arrested, they said, for domestic violence.
All right, Ms. Ramos, let me hear your version of the events. August 19th, 2004, you were at the apartment at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes, ma'am. I actually arrived at 5 o'clock in the afternoon because the evening before I had to go to an appointment. Well, I spent the night at my mom's house, and that night...
What kind of an appointment?
I actually had to go... I had to go apply for general assistance because we weren't bringing in enough money, and he wasn't allowing me to work. I had to
What do you mean,
sneak.
just a second, what do you mean he wasn't allowing you to work?
He wasn't allowing me to work.
I don't understand. Put your hand down. I don't understand that.
He wouldn't allow me to go look for a job throughout the day. I would sneak to go look for a job. And
when was the last time you were employed?
Last time when I was employed, I was 16 years old. And that was at
How
Burger
old are you
King.
now?
I'm 18 now. And I am employed now.
Mr. Strong?
That is incorrect, Your Honor.
Okay.
I encouraged her numerous times to get a job.
Well, tell me about it, Mr. Strong.
I even, to the point where I told her I would leave the, I would leave the car keys and everything, even to the point where I told her my mother would take her to go look for a job, Your Honor, while I'm at work.
What was the argument about on the 19th of August, Ms. Ramos?
By that point, I was just so fed up with barely making ends meet that we had to, penny pinch. We had hardly no food in the fridge. So I said, you know what, I'm going to apply for general assistance. Well, I didn't tell him that. I told my mom that. I went to spend the night at my mom's house that evening, and I didn't ask him or anything. I just packed my stuff up. By the time he got home from work, he said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to my mom's house to spend the night. I have an appointment in the morning. Well, that evening when I was at my mom's house, he called me numerous times. His mom called me numerous times saying that Tony is here. I'm sorry, Robert. They call him Tony. Tony is here at the house. He, I don't know what's going on. He's pacing back and forth. I have no idea what's going on. I told her, well, I'm here at my mom's house. I had to leave for the evening because I have an appointment in the morning. Well, following evening, I went back home. The house was a mess. He wasn't home from work yet. The house was a mess. And finally, he walked in about 5:30, 5:15, and I was in the kitchen trying to clean stuff up. And he said, hi, babe. I didn't say anything to him. And he said, well, what's wrong? Why are you mad? I said, look at the house. Ask me why I'm mad. Look at what you did to the house. He said, well, oh, well. He said, you left me like a dog the night before, so I messed up the house. I said, that's no excuse to mess up the house. So he turned around and I said, you know what? I don't need this. I do not need you or this in my life. I picked up my house keys off the counter, which the house keys did have the extra set of car keys, my cell phone, and I started to walk out of the kitchen. He picked up a knife off of the table, started to tell me that he was going to kill me. He said, if you go and you leave me, I'll kill you. And he said, no, as a matter of fact, I'll kill myself. Started to push the knife into his neck and onto his wrist. At that point, I started screaming, and I was trying to pull it up so it wouldn't puncture him. Finally, he dropped it, and he went and he grabbed me by my neck and started pushing me up against the kitchen sink, in the corner of the kitchen sink and the stove. Started choking me. I finally pushed him off. When I pushed him off, he reached in to get a kiss. And I went like that. I said, you passed up that opportunity. And I started walking out of the kitchen. When I started walking out of the kitchen, he ran up to the front door. I got the front door open about this much. The neighbors seen me. I opened up the front door, and he went and grabbed me by my throat and pushed me up against the wall. Slammed the front door. He said, you F&B, you're not going nowhere. He grabbed the cell phone out of my hand and threw it up against the wall. That's in the police report, too. The neighbors were hearing everything that was going on downstairs.
What the neighbors were hearing. Who called the police?
The neighbors.
You didn't call the police?
I did not call the police until I finally ran out of the house, but that was minutes later.
Where did you call the police from?
At the neighbor's house, but that was after I wrecked the car.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Robert Tony Strong says ex-fiancée Camille Ramos wrecked his Buick Regal. Camille says she was fleeing from Robert after he threatened to kill her.
Can I see the police report, please?
Yes, ma'am. There are statements from witnesses that seen him hitting me. Sorry. It's a chunky one.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I never once hit her. Never.
He pleaded to domestic violence.
Not once did I hit her.
Speak.
The only reason I did plead to domestic violence, Your Honor, is because so I can get out of jail. I was facing 6 years in the penitentiary.
Listen to me, Mr. Strong. I didn't even ask you the question. You were arrested for domestic violence?
I was charged with domestic. I was charged with corporal injury to a spouse or companion, destruction of telephone or telegraphic, and terrorist threat.
How long had you been living in that apartment complex, sir?
For about, I'd say, a month and 3 weeks, so almost 2 months.
Do you know a woman by the name of Melinda?
I do not know, sir. Ma'am.
She's a neighbor of yours. Police interviewed her.
Okay.
This neighbor says she saw you push the defendant into a corner and you had your hands around her throat.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Okay.
I never once pushed her or grabbed her.
Your Honor, I have pictures of my injuries.
The police observed that the apartment was in a total state of disarray, sir. There was overturned furniture in the living room. There were broken parts of a cell phone in the closet in the bedroom. The bathroom door was taken off the hinges. Closet rod, which one uses for hanging clothes in the closet, was on the floor in the bedroom. How'd that happen?
That happened when I went to go grab my clothes, Your Honor. I was in my closet, and I went to go like this, bear hug all my clothes. When I did that, she pushed me into the closet.
You left that out.
I fell down, and that's how that curtain thing broke.
You left out the fact that she pushed you in the closet, Mr. Strong. How did the furniture get overturned in the living room?
I don't know about that one, Your Honor. When I came home...
How did the cell phone
get
broken and in a lot of pieces, sir? How did that happen?
I don't know, Your Honor.
You don't know?
No.
You do know that you pled guilty to domestic violence?
Yes, I do know that.
Now, when you pled guilty to domestic violence, the judge asked you to make a statement as to exactly what you were pleading guilty to. What did you tell the judge you did on the 19th of August?
I just told the judge, basically, I defended myself. She came after me with a knife. I pushed her away, and after that, I went to go get my clothes out of my closet. She pushed me into the closet. She left, and that's when she jumped in the car, wrecked it, and
Mr.
I ran after her.
Mr. Strong, there are all different kinds of judges in this country, some brighter than others. None of them would have accepted the plea that you just outlined to me as a plea. I'm speaking! As a plea of guilty to domestic violence. Because what you said to me was that you pled guilty, although she was guilty of domestic violence. You must think that the whole world is stupid, including me.
Your Honor, that's...
Yeah, listen to me, sir. That never happened.
That did happen.
Never happened.
That did happen.
Mr. Strong, never happened in this country, sir.
Okay.
Never.
Excuse me, Your Honor, that is what he told the judge.
I want to tell you something. You're his mother?
Yes.
Listen to me.
I was in the court when he told the judge, and he's leaving out the fact that he had a cut from her cutting him with the knife.
Listen to me very, very carefully. I'm speaking. My mouth is moving. No jurist in this country would accept a plea as outlined by your son, because what he told me was she came at him with a knife. In response to that, he went to the closet to get his clothes and left. That's what you told me.
Correct.
Right? The police support her version of the events because they say that the apartment was a disaster, which is what she says in her statement. Not that you were just waiting for her to come home and you had a discussion about money that escalated into an argument. You never put your hands on her. In addition to that, your statement and your plea to domestic violence totally fall without what I consider any kind of reason or common sense, which leads me to believe that she was escaping from your assault. She was escaping from your assaulted behavior. Put your hand down. And as such, sir, if she was escaping and if she totaled your car because she was trying to get away from you, deal with it. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All these are excuses. You may step out.
She was planning to leave me and didn't know how to tell me, so that's how she did it.
I wasn't planning on leaving him. I was planning on bettering myself.
She had another boyfriend on the side.
When a lot of people weren't there for me, he was. But in the end, his true colors showed.
I am glad it's over, and now I can get on with my life.
For all those girls out there who you think that you need help from anyone, you don't need help from no one. You do it on your own, just like I did it, and you'll make it. You'll make it with everything you got.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Kinsberg versus Merrick. Step forward, please.
58-year-old toy store owner Barry Kinsberg is suing his ex-girlfriend, 39-year-old receptionist Laura Merrick, for an unpaid loan to pay her rent. Laura says Barry offered her the money.
Mr. Kinsberg, you claim that you made a loan to Miss Merrick because she needed money to pay her rent. Miss Merrick acknowledges that you gave her some money, the operative word in her answer is gave. She said it was a gift, that you insisted on helping her out because you didn't want her to move away. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
How do you know her, sir?
My condo needed repairs, and Laura was the receptionist, and one of my utilities kept breaking down. So we got into this more or less, we had a dialogue.
When did you meet her, Mr. Ginsburg?
May.
And did you begin a social relationship?
We had a talking relationship, and then after that we arranged to have a first meeting.
And where did you go on the first meeting?
Actually, we went to a diner, Your Honor.
When did you have your first social encounter at the diner?
I think it was June.
Beginning, middle, or end?
The beginning.
And when did she ask you for money?
The next date, she was intimating that she had financial problems, Your Honor.
Was that also in June?
Yes, Your Honor.
What kind of financial problems were you having?
I was not having any financial problems. I was thinking about possibly moving back to my home state of Colorado. I did not want to start a massage therapy practice in New Jersey, which is where I'm living now, and I did not ask him for help with rent. That's not true.
Well, what did you take the money for, Miss Merrick?
We were dating. We were dating for about month and a half, and we have a lot in common.
I didn't ask you whether you had a lot in common. I don't give a rat's behind what you had in common. I want to know what you took money from him for.
Well, we were dating. We had a good relationship going.
Did he give you this money all at one time?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
He offered it. He offered it to me.
Just a minute. So he said to you, let me pay your rent for you, and you said...
I
said, no, I don't want you to do that, because I don't take money from men. I assume in this relationship you were just having dinner together, or was it a more intimate relationship?
It was a more intimate relationship.
So I assume that if it was a more intimate relationship, Miss Merrick, you weren't being paid for your intimacy, so I assume that that's true.
That's true.
So that you were taking the money for something. And what I'm asking you is, what were you taking the money for?
He brought up the idea to me of me possibly moving in with him, and I was possibly thinking about considering that. I wasn't totally decided if I was going to go back to my home state for sure yet. But he brought that up, and it was something I was considering.
You mean moving in with him?
Exactly, yes.
What does that have to do with money?
Well, I'm just trying to make the point that it wasn't like I just took it from him and then, you know, it was like I was hoping that something more was going to come about with us. I mean, he was talking about me moving in. I'm like, okay, maybe this could be something more permanent.
How much did you give her?
$715, Your Honor.
How old are you, Mr. Kingsburg?
56
You have to think about that.
Yeah.
How old are you, Mr. Kingsburg?
I just had a birthday, Your Honor. Just turned 58.
And how old is Miss Merrick?
She's 39.
Have you ever been married, Mr. Kingsburg?
Yes, Your Honor.
For how long?
25 years.
Divorced, widowed?
Divorced.
When were you divorced, sir?
Last October, Your Honor.
Mr. Kingsburg, what I want you to do is look at me. I want you to look up and I want you to say, thank you, Lord, that this dame only cost me $750. Do you understand?
She called me and says to me, during the course of dating, the couple of dates we went out on, she needed to borrow money.
Where did you expect her to get this money from, Mr. Kingsburg?
She told me that she was getting a rebate from Colorado on a vehicle. She was getting money back for her insurance. In fact, I asked her, how are you going to repay this? And she said to me, I can repay this because I'm getting a rebate on auto insurance from Colorado.
How much after you received the $715 from Mr. Kingsburg, Miss Merrick, did you decide that he was annoying?
About within a week and a half, phone calls every day. Then he started coming around my apartment building, and I was home one day and I observed him. He drove up. He was like looking around at my car and then drove off. And that's when I really started to get concerned, because I was like, oh, this is getting really strange now. And then one of my neighbors told me one day...
Don't tell me what your neighbors told you. Mr. Kingsburg, You're a lucky man. But, you know, age appropriate isn't terrible, Mr. Kingsburg. How old was your wife?
She's 50. Well, she's about 50.
That's nice.
Right.
That's nice, Mr. Kingsburg. Find somebody more age appropriate and who has a little more character. In any event, I believe you when you say that she asked if she could borrow some money, and I believe that she told you that she was expecting a rebate check, because I don't think that you would make that up. And since I don't believe a word that comes out of her mouth, I'm going to issue a judgment in the amount of $715. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Why does that excuse you may step out?
There was a condition to it. If there wasn't a condition to it, I wouldn't be standing at Judge Judy.
It never was a loan. It was, he just gave it to me, and we were considering moving in together.
I think probably in all relationships, there's sometimes people hear what they want to hear.
The coming around to where I lived, and I wasn't there. I was, you know, and talking to my neighbors, and I got a little concerned after that.
Sometimes you take these relationships. Some can be fixed, and some cannot.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Bump versus Hansard, step forward, please.
Policeman Marcelo Bump is suing his neighbors, Jamie Hansard and his brother Nathan Hansard, for damaging his Mustang GT when they shot off fireworks on the 4th of July.
Mr. Bump, the two defendants are your neighbors.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that last July 4th, your two neighbors were setting off firecrackers. Some of the firecrackers landed on your car.
Yes, ma'am.
Causing damage to your car's paint.
Yes, ma'am.
And you want them to pay for the damage.
Yes, ma'am.
The two defendants acknowledged that they were setting off firecrackers.
Yes, ma'am.
But that there were a lot of people setting off fireworks. And there's no way to tell whether your fireworks were the ones that actually caused the damage.
Yes, ma'am.
How old are you?
30.
And you?
I'm 25.
Are you related to each other?
We're brothers.
Do you live together?
Yes.
Who else lives with you?
My 3 children.
Now tell me about the fireworks you were setting off.
We were shooting fireworks that...
What kind?
They're different names. Some Tommy guns.
Tommy guns.
Cherry bomb.
Cherry bomb.
Black Widow. Black Widow. 4th of July.
Just a minute. Black Widow.
4th of July.
So you had at least one of each of these things.
Several.
Where did you buy them?
North Carolina.
Where do you live?
Georgia.
You bought them in North Carolina. And where did you shoot them off?
In our parking lot.
In Georgia.
Yes, ma'am.
Why didn't you buy them in Georgia?
Because you can't buy them in Georgia.
Why not?
They're illegal.
So you just traveled a little bit and went to North Carolina and bought them there.
Yes, ma'am.
And despite the fact that the law precludes you from using them in Georgia, you used them.
Yes, ma'am.
And now you expect a court to be fair to you. Is that what you're telling me?
I admit I broke the law. But damaging his vehicle is a different story.
Just a minute. No, you're not saying that you didn't damage his vehicle. What you're saying, I believe, is there were a lot of people that were violating the law, and there's no way to tell whether it was my Tommy guns, cherry bombs, Black Widows, 4th of Julys, et cetera, that actually caused the damage. Because there were a lot of people.
There were a lot of people shooting fireworks, so...
There's no way to tell. Is that right?
There's no way to tell that it was ours, no.
Correct. That's your defense.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't believe that his vehicle was damaged by fireworks, period.
Fine. That's a different story. There was no damage to his car, then you wouldn't be responsible. But let me tell you something. When you break the law, and you broke the law in front of your 3 children, which is even more vile, because then what you're teaching your children is there are certain laws that are meant to be broken. There are certain laws you can pick and choose what laws you want to obey. That's the message you're sending to your children. It's ridiculous for the state of Georgia, where we live, not to have fireworks. So you don't have to obey that law. If you want to shoot off fireworks, you can. Is that the kind of message you want to give to your kids?
Some may portray it that way, yes.
What do you mean some might portray it that way? That's exactly what you did. You knew it was against the law to purchase fireworks. You knew it was against the law to shoot off fireworks in the state where you live. Despite that, you, who are the custodial parent for 3 children, who was supposed to teach them the difference between right and wrong, you've taught them that they can selectively choose what laws they want to adhere to and what laws they can break. Because they say, listen, my father breaks the law. My father does things that the state says he can't do. You're teaching your children that breaking the law is okay, and that's the wrong thing. And then you can't come to court and say to me or to any judge, he has to be able to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that it was my fireworks that damaged his car. No, he doesn't. He just has to be able to prove that you, against the law, were shooting off fireworks in the proximity of his car that could have damaged his car, at least in my world. The issue is not really whether you are responsible if there was damage to this car. You're responsible. The issue is, was there any damage? That's what you say. There was no damage. So now, we've established one thing. Now you can show me the damage.
Ma'am, I have some digital pictures taken of the vehicle.
You have an estimate to fix it?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I have pictures of the same vehicle and the same area that show no damage, and they were taken 3 days ago.
Let me see. Let me see both.
I also took several shots of other parts of the car to show that weren't any damage did either. Because I believe the estimate that he had stated that front fenders, hood, several parts.
Oh, I see the damage, sir. I don't know where your eyes are. I see it. It's just that your pictures are farther away than his are. His are close by. I see the damage, the exact same place where it shows here, right above this little thing. I see it. You should look a little bit closer or get your eyes checked.
Okay.
Anything else anybody wants to say to me?
I have an estimate that states what he was claiming. His estimate claims as far as clear coat on the damage of a car can't be damaged by fireworks unless they're shot completely, right on the paint. Something that hit it or landed on it said it can't be damaged. I don't know. That's just a statement that a body shop says.
You have a witness here for me to read?
No, ma'am.
You don't have?
No.
Yes, we do have a witness.
You have a witness?
I have a witness to state what we did, but not as far as
I know
the
what
body
you
shop.
did. You told me what you did. You illegally purchased fireworks and you illegally shot them off. What do I need a witness? Is that what they did?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Your witness corroborates that. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $923. Thank you very much.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I feel like Judge Judy made the right decision.
Everyone was just having a good time. It was 4th of July.
They did admit to me that they were out shooting fireworks.
I didn't feel we had done damage to his vehicle.
Damn, it's something you need to pay for it.
Suing her client, Danny Velasquez, for dance class fees.
Court coming to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2086, Renner versus Velasquez.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Renner, you run a dance studio.
I do.
How long have you had it?
30 years.
And what age children do you teach?
We have a Mommy and Me class, which starts at 18 months, and our oldest student is 19 years old.
And Miss Velasquez has a daughter. And she was at your school during what period of time?
She started in June of 2020, and she quit in June of this year.
Your lawsuit is simple. You claim that Miss Velasquez owes you money for her daughter's dance lessons.
Yes.
The defendant actually disavows owing you any money. She said that you actually behaved in a mean-spirited way in not allowing her daughter to finish her recital. So I'm trying to think back to my days when I was 6 and 7. And if I remember correctly, the name of the school that I went to, and I know that this is not something that everybody is breathless to hear about, but I haven't had one of these cases. And I was thinking back to Miss Nottage, who had a dancing school in her home on that you took classes for. I took toe, tap, ballet, and acrobatics, which was not my strong suit. Any of them. None of them were my strong suit. Father always said that I should sue the city because they built the sidewalk too close to my behind because my legs are short. So being a ballerina was really not physically possible for me, but in my mind, I thought I was a ballerina. Anyway, as do most little girls, I assume. So you worked during the year, and at the end of the year of your dance class, I remember you gave a recital. Everybody got all excited and dressed for the recital. I assume that's what happens in your class. Yes, that's a yes.
Yes.
Did you have a contract with Miss Velasquez?
I have a registration form which acknowledges receipt of studio policies.
Well, policies is not a contract, but I'll take a look at it anyway. The question is, do you have a signed contract with her? According to these policies, which are not a written contract because she has not signed this document in particular, you say you acknowledge receipt of it. What it mostly is tell them what the instructions are and give you a release of liability. It does indicate here that full tuition is due on the first class of each month. And how much was the tuition for Miss Velasquez's daughter?
From January through June, it was $170 a month. And then from September through December, it was $165 a month.
Okay, so around $170 a month. And I assume she was current on her tuition in 2020. And in 2020, did Miss Velasquez make her payments on the first of each month?
Well, I can't say exactly on the first, but yes, it was always current, which is why...
That's not what I asked you. Was it made pursuant to your policies here on the first of each month?
I don't know. I don't remember specifically.
What about in 2021? Were her payments made on payments in 2021 on the first of each month?
Well, I have emailed spreadsheets here, and so starting in December, she asked me if she could make small payments, increments throughout the month because she was a single mother and wasn't able to make the full payment on the first.
So you said yes, that she could make payments incrementally. Mm-hmm. And do you have that same arrangement with some other parents?
I do.
How many other parents do you have that arrangement with?
Well, anybody who asks in...
How many? You run the school.
5.
How many students do you have?
5.
Okay. So you have that arrangement with this mother plus 5? Mm-hmm. And that is inconsistent with your policies.
Yes.
That would be a yes. Now, tell me what happened, Miss Velasquez, that caused you to fall behind in your payments. You acknowledge you fell behind in your payments.
Yes, I do.
When did you fall behind in your payments?
I asked Ms. Renner if I could start making payments in September of 2020, and in October, I didn't pay anything because my father passed away. And I explained that to her, and then I made up for it in November through payments, and I just continued to pay as I could with being a single mom.
Well, that's not a reason to not pay her, being a single mom as you could. You understand that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm sure you're doing the best you can. You're trying to give your little girl, how old is she?
9.
9. Trying to give her the best possible experience. It's all wonderful, but this is her business. And if you owe her money, then you owe her money. Mm-hmm. Since the policies are honored and sometimes not, there was one part of your policy, even though that this is the contract that I actually find ridiculous, because in your lawsuit, you claim you're owed $946 and $7,169.76 interest. That's not happening. And it's not happening. You gave me an easy out because you really don't enforce your own policies.
I try to be kind to people who
and I
need
try
help.
to be kind too. Being kind is not suing somebody for $900 and suing them for $9,000. That's not being kind, because you know there's no question that you agree that you owe her some money.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's I would probably find it an unconscionable piece for somebody who owes you less than $1,000 and you want $7,200 because it includes interest. I find that ridiculous. How many students were in Miss Velasquez's class?
Approximately 18.
When you say approximately 18, the number varied based on what?
Well, my memory, it was either 18 or 19 children. I don't remember how many. That's a very large class.
Are you the sole teacher?
Well, I do the ballet, and I have a teacher who teaches the jazz class.
Your daughter takes ballet or jazz, or both?
Yeah.
Your daughter stopped going to school when?
May 17th.
Tell me the circumstances.
That was when I got a ledger from the studio that said that I owed $965. And my math was thinking I was closer to like $360. So I kept messaging and asking where the confusion was. And I didn't get a response until May 27th.
That said what?
That said I owed...
That was for late fees? What was it for?
The dance team and the costumes for the recital that was coming up.
Okay. Well, do you have a ledger? And I'd like to see your ledger. So far, I have, according to you, what you owe, because you did a breakdown of what you owe. It is your claim that you owe $846, correct?
Yep.
And she says you owe $946. That's without the interest and the late fees.
Yeah.
So you are actually, based upon raw numbers, $100 apart.
I have an email from her stating that she owes $947.
I'd like to see it, please.
And later today,
Do you keep a certain amount of clothes at Miss Bourne's apartment?
No, Your Honor, they're usually in my truck.
So you stay with your mom?
Yeah, that's my primary residence. Like, it's maybe two days out of a week.
Mr. White, this is what we're getting. You see where we're starting to smile?
Jennifer Renner claims her client, Danny Velasquez, owes for dance class fees.
Okay, so in this email, you acknowledge owing $586, $60 for team. What is team?
They did like competition teams that I allowed my daughter to be on. Before I let her audition, I made sure that Jenny was okay with my payments, and I sent it all in.
No, I'm just reading the email, which seems to acknowledge that you owed her $947.
Yeah, so the team portion was $361, which is what I thought was owed.
No, you said team, and your regular tuition said that I owed $1,301 when I only owed $586. So $586 and $361 and $947.
You're correct. I just couldn't get any accurate numbers.
I'm taking your numbers that you acknowledge.
Right. First she said it was $1,647 I owed, then she said $1,400.
Right now I have, she says amount owed $946. You said it was $947. So let's say it's $947. And that's without late fees and without interest. So you would consider that a fair number.
Yeah.
And Ms. Rayner, you would consider that a fair number?
Yes.
Judge.
I think it was fair. I just wish that my daughter would have been able to dance.
Money was due to me, and she was not paying.
I had to go in and be the one that broke her heart.
She argued with every statement we sent her.
We've already found a new studio, and it's amazing.
Pay your bills.
It's a big blessing in disguise that my daughter's not with Jenny anymore.
I'm sure you were a great dancer back in your day. Maybe ballet now isn't for you, but I'm sure you were the cutest one in the class. But I do think it was unconscionable for the owner of the dance studio to agree that the mother only owed around $900, and she wanted to have this court pay her almost $9,000 in late fees and interest. I mean, I think it's just unconscionable.
It was a good shot. You know, usually when you do a contract, a formal contract, contracts usually say if any part of this contract is found to be either unconscionable or illegal, the remainder of the contract remains in full force and effect. Usually you have something that says that. Well, this was just an acceptance of the school policy, but the school policy clearly was flexible.
It was, and as soon as she said that, I was hoping that she would have drawn up for those 5 or 6 parents that she, as a business owner, would have drawn up something mimicking a contract with them to show what their agreement was.
Memorialize that agreement.
Because as you said, well, if you're flexible on this point and that point, why are you not flexible on the interest that you're...
interest point,
exactly.
which sounded unconscionable.
It did.
Anyway, I really, Sarah, remember those dance classes and crossing Parkside Avenue to go to Miss Nottage's studio. The thing that I remember most about it was the acrobatics class. I swear they had something strung up that looked like a torture chamber. It was strung up from the ceilings and you were put in a harness. You started from one end of the room, and when you got to the minute, she pulled you up on a pulley and you were supposed to do a somersault. And I remember I couldn't get off the ground. My little chubby legs were
flailing,
and I couldn't get my behind over the rest of my body.
Listen, I'm not a dancer either.
And then I started thinking about law school.
Yeah, I think that.
Semi-automatic rifle.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2055, Lukoski versus Clune.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lukoski, am I correct that you own or manage a shooting range?
Yes, it's a target range that's on my own property that I own in northern Minnesota.
And it's licensed to do commercial target shooting?
Not necessarily. What I do is...
What is not necessarily? What does that mean?
Well, for 19 years, I have been a firearms instructor for the permits to carry for the sheriff's department in my county. Okay. So I don't believe that the training is good enough that the people are getting to be able to carry handguns on the street. So I give them a free additional training session at my range.
You also sell guns?
I do not sell guns, no.
How do you make money, is my question.
So I give money by charging people for the class.
Well, that's what I'm talking. You charge people
yes.
to use, and you don't need a license to run that sort of operation in your county.
No, you have to be a registered NRA instructor, which is also, you know...
Are you?
Yes, I am, ma'am.
For how long?
Oh, I've been doing this for 19 years.
The case is really not very complicated, but let me see if I can break it down to its most basic elements. There was a gentleman who regularly came to your range.
Yes.
And his first name was?
Jim.
How long had he been coming to your range?
A couple of years at least.
And then, according to what you indicate in your complaint, and Mr. Clun doesn't deny it, he got sick. And according to you, the nature of his illness, you felt prevented him from using a heavier weapon.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you loaned to him, because of his illness, a rifle.
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of rifle did you
It was a sporting rifle. It was very lightweight.
What kind?
It was called a PS-90. That was the model.
PS?
PS as in Sam, 90.
Would you take a look at that, Sarah, please?
I have a picture of it, Your Honor, if you'd like to see one.
I would.
It's very unusual.
Okay.
May I see it? Thank you.
And on approximately what month and year did you loan Jim this gun?
Well...
Well is not an answer, so let's think carefully, because we know we're coming
probably a month approximately before he died, which was
I don't know when that was.
September 8th, I believe, he passed away in 2021.
How did you find out that he passed away?
I believe Mary here, who's here because of the fact that she caregave for him while he was going through cancer treatments. She was his reason for staying alive. And she also did witness some things that happened in this case.
Okay, I'll get to you in a second. So he passed away on November 8th.
He died on September 9th.
9th?
Yeah.
Okay.
And okay.
Prior to his passing away, Jim and Mr. Clun had some business deal. And Mr. Clun believed that Jim owed him money. So far, right?
Correct.
And after Jim died, Mr. Clun went to Jim's home and took several things from the home to satisfy that debt.
No, I did not do that, Your Honor. I never came back to the house. I never took anything. Everything I received prior to his death.
Okay. Tell me when you received the gun that belonged to Mr. Lukoski.
Looks like 5/20/21.
Can I see what you have that indicates that you received the gun in May? Because you gave it to him about a month before he died?
Approximately a month.
Well,
could have been a little longer.
It had to be longer.
Okay.
I picked it up.
You couldn't have given it to him in August.
Yeah, you're right.
It had to be before then.
Okay.
And tell me the circumstances, because that's what this case is about. Mr. Lukoski claims that it was his gun. It was a loan. You had no right because you took it. You got it, evidently, you want to tell me, from Jim, and then subsequently sold it.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I want you to tell me the circumstances surrounding your getting possession of this gun in May of 2021.
Jim was in need of money, so I loaned him money, and in trade for the money as collateral, he said he would...
Okay. And I'm going to let you tell me this because Jim's not here, so I'm going to have to get more specifics from people who were his caregivers to buttress what you're saying to me. He needed some money. How did you know him?
Best friends from high school.
And you remained friends?
Yes.
How did you find out that Jim needed money?
Jim called me up, and he was getting scammed, but he wanted the money, and he told me
he was getting scammed by whom?
I don't know who it was, but anyway, I would give him $2,500. He would go to the post office and mail it somewhere. But every time he did that, I would receive collateral of motorcycles or guns.
Just a second. I want you to run this by me. Jim called you and said, I'm being scammed?
No. I think he's being scammed.
I don't care what you think.
Okay.
What you think is unimportant to me. I want you to tell me the circumstances surrounding the money that you gave to him. He called you and said...
He needed to borrow money. I borrowed him the money.
No. I need to borrow money. Had you ever loaned him money before?
Yes.
Often?
No. In the last year of his life, I did probably a half a dozen times.
Just in the last year. So when he called you and said, I need to borrow some money, the reaction, even from a best friend, would be, of course, if you need money, tell me why. Right? That's a natural question. And so that's what you asked him. Tell me why.
And I asked him that question, and he said he was going to be receiving $1 million or $2 million.
So you brought Mr. Lukoski's gun back to Jim while he was alive?
No, I sold the gun
keep going. So you sold this specific. Just tell the truth. You don't have to have a good memory.
Alan Lukowski claims business owner Gene Klun owes for a semi-automatic rifle.
So did you ask him how?
I asked him how, and he said he had it all planned with this guy he was sending the money to.
That's all he told you about it? Or did he go into specifics? He did. It had to sound interesting to you, Mr. Klun, because if my best friend called me and said, I need to borrow some money, and I said, tell me why. And she said, because I'm going to come into $1 million shortly, but I need to borrow money to get it to this guy before I get the $1 million. I would say, explain that to me.
And I did. And he said...
And he said...
He said that he would be receiving money in the next month or 2 months.
Mr. Klun, then you would say, how does that, and can I get in on it? You know, if I'm sending you $2,500, which is what you said you gave him, I would say, oh, gee, $2,500, that's a reasonable investment, and I'm going to get a return on my money of $1 million shortly. I would say, is there any piece of that for me?
I didn't question him. He just wanted the money, and he said in return for the money, he would give me the motorcycles and guns as collateral.
Okay. May I please see the written agreement that you had?
Verbal.
So other than you and Jim, nobody knew about this agreement. Time you gave him money?
Looks like May.
May?
Of 2021.
Okay. When was the last time you gave him money?
7/6/21.
Between May of 2021 and the beginning of July, how many times did you give him money?
4 times.
And you have that documented with bank records, etc.
Right here, Your Honor.
Okay, great. And tell me how much in total you gave him.
$7,500.
Kevin, would you bring me the documents that Mr. Klun is looking at, please? So in total, you gave him $7,500. And in return, according to you, you took possession of how many motorcycles?
3 motorcycles.
And they belonged to Jim?
And he signed over the titles and everything to me.
Well, they were collateral.
Right. But he signed over everything and gave me the titles for everything.
Can I see the titles to the motorcycles?
They're sold, ma'am.
Interesting.
As well as the rifles that I got also.
I'm just asking you, do you have the sales receipts from the 3 motorcycles? There were 3? Did you say 3?
Yeah.
Do you have the sales receipts from the 3 motorcycles that you say you sold?
No, but I was paid $5,000 in cash for the 3
How am I supposed to know that, sir? You sold 3 motorcycles.
Okay.
How am I supposed to know? I mean, all of this is coming out of nowhere, actually, with no proof whatsoever, unless you're prepared to give me some flesh on this bone of a case. Could you stand up? Your first name is Mary?
Yes, it is.
What's your last name?
Wellman.
Were you Jim's caregiver?
Yes, I lived in the upstairs of his house.
Were you a tenant?
We were friends since the late 90s when I first moved to the area.
So regular caregiver of his, or were you just as needed?
He developed cancer in the late 90s, and I stayed, then I lived with him in the first 2 years because of the 50-50 survival rate and the constant trips to the Mayo Clinic from where we lived were an entire day trip. And then moved out, but we remained friends and we rode motorcycles together and we did lots together. And
so you lived in the house?
Yeah, and I moved back in okay.
Okay. Were you living in the house when he bought these 3 motorcycles?
2 of them I was. A dual sport that he had changed or upgraded to ride a little bit more rough terrain, possibly into Canada.
Okay, just to...
yeah.
That much flesh on the bones I don't need.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Did he buy them new or used?
He had bought them used.
In approximately what year?
Well, would have been during the cancer, and so it approximately 2000 to 2003.
Do you know anything else about his dealings with Mr. Klun?
I do know the motorcycles were in the garage when Jim died.
No, they weren't.
Don't.
Okay.
Don't speak. How do you know that?
Well, I had on and off go out there for things, but to then Jim's nephew had come and removed one of the bikes right after Jim had passed away.
So the nephew came and removed one.
Mm-hmm.
But this was after he passed.
Yes.
What's the nephew's first name?
Anthony.
Do you know Anthony, Mr. Clun?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Did you get the motorcycle from Anthony?
Nope, I got the motorcycles from Jim, the motorcycles that were left after Jim passed away.
Okay. Now you can sit down.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Clun. Do you have any statements, text messages, or anything else indicating that Jim indicated to you that he could give you as collateral this rifle, other than the fact that he had it in his possession?
I got more than one rifle. I have checks that were written out to Jim, and that's what we did.
But that does, he only had one that he gave to Jim because it was lighter and easier to shoot. And as his illness progressed, if I'm getting this right, it was hard for him to pick up his own rifle. Now, he may have had more, probably did have more, because you took more than one, right?
Correct.
Okay. How many rifles did you take?
I took 3 rifles, 5 pistols. I had to bring 3 of the rifles back.
Where?
To Jim to get replacements. The guns that were from Mr. Lukoski.
Only one?
3 of them.
No, he said he only gave him one.
Oh, no, but there was 3 of them.
So you brought Mr. Lukoski's gun back to Jim while he was alive?
No, I sold the gun.
Keep going. You sold...
This specific...
Just tell the truth. You don't have to have a good memory. If, heaven forbid, something happened to me and my dentist thought that I owed him $25,000, he couldn't come into my house and say, gee, this Ming vase is just going to cover my dental bill. You can't do that. And that's what you did.
Alan Lukoski is accusing business owner Gene Clun of selling his semi-automatic rifle without permission.
Keep going. So you sold it. You didn't take it back to him to get a replacement.
No,
to Jim.
You misunderstood. The gun that Mr. Lukoski had, I kept that one.
The one that belongs to Mr. Lukoski, you sold it.
Correct, because...
So just a second. Sold it to whom?
The gun dealer in Virginia, Minnesota.
Great. And for that, you have a receipt.
Yes.
I'd like to see it.
I left it at home.
Oh.
Your Honor,
Mr. Clun.
Oh,
Mr.
he has it right there.
Let Mr. Clun, he doesn't have to prove anything to me. I believe that you resorted to self. It's true, and you did, in fact, give him money. I actually don't believe that a guy like you would give him all this money without trying to find out what the scam was, or at least tell him, Jim, it sounds to me like you're being scammed. Somebody in Transylvania sent you an email that said a long-distant relative of yours died and left you $1 million. I need $2,500 in order to clear the paperwork to send you $1 million. And I will keep a little piece for myself for finding you. You know how many of those everybody gets? I don't know why people still believe that, but you evidently believed that story 4 times. And not once did you say your friend who was dying of cancer, Jim, this is ridiculous. What you're doing is just throwing good money after bad. I don't understand why you didn't say that to him, or if you did, you would not have said to him, unless you had something to gain, which clearly you did. You sold the motorcycles. You don't have any proof of what you sold them for. You expect me to take your word for the fact that you sold them for $5,000 in cash without proof. He owed you, if I were to believe you and these checks, $7,500. You sold the motorcycles, you sold guns, but unfortunately, one of the things that you sold belonged to the plaintiff. And when somebody dies, there is an estate. There's a judge who decides what property there is. You know, if heaven forbid something happened to me and my dentist thought that I owed him $25,000, he couldn't come into my house and say, gee, I like this Ming vase. This Ming vase is just going to cover my dental bill. You can't do that. And that's what you did. You sold property. You may have had a claim against his estate.
Yes.
Yes. Did he have children?
No, he left the house to me.
Okay. So he had an estate. Clearly, there's money in the estate because he left a house that has some value to someone else. So you cannot, Mr. Klun, resort to self-help. And Mr. Lukoski is going to show me the value of the gun that his...
Yes. May I expound just a bit on this gun?
I don't care about
the manufacturer.
I don't care about the gun. I don't care if it's a crown in my mouth. What's the value of the gun?
The value of the gun at the time that this man took possession of it.
Just give me an answer.
It was $3,000. It's gained in value.
Okay, well, who cares if it's gained in value, sir? I'd like you to show me where the gun is valued at $3,000. Did you look it up?
I did. I have it. It's listed from the same photo. I found the website listed for $2,500.
Okay. My law clerk found an ad online. Now you're going to show me what you want to show me, that the value is $3,000. Let me see it, please.
May I say something else about this gun?
Not until I look at this. I don't know what this is. Immediate checkout credit card. What is this?
Look at the very top, please.
I see what this is. I want to see what you paid for. This is something that's on sale, starting bid.
It's just a typical price of what they sell for on Gunbroker.
Okay. $2,500?
Yes.
Okay. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500. We're finished. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
I'm pleased at the outcome because the information needed to be exposed that there was something terribly wrong.
Somebody waits for 10 months and finds out his gun is missing.
Too many different people, and no one had the same answer from him at any time.
Something's wrong.
I don't think he had a choice. It was the only way he was going to win his case because everything's based on mistruths.
I could not get my mind around the defendant. To have a friend since high school that you're best friends with, you remained good friends with, if one of my best friends came to me and told me, hi, I just need now, I'd say, are you crazy? There's so many of these scams going around. I know I've seen your phone sometimes gets tripped up with the scammers and in the middle of the night ringing off the hook. It's unfortunate that people fall for these scams and really send their hard-earned money, sometimes that they don't have, to these scam artists, and they're never going to see it again. And I think that people have to be really vigilant. I know there's been warnings and things like that that I've seen more publicized recently about scams and just how detailed and intricate they can seem, but it's really just...
I get them all the time, as you said.
Yeah.
I have to go like this and then delete.
Delete.
Anton, please answer immediately. Your $3,000 refund is sitting here waiting for you.
Non-existent.
No, sometimes they leave out Anton. Your $3,000 refund is here.
Yeah, gotta be smart.
And, you know, Sarah, a couple of years ago, I don't know whether you remember, but I just thought about it. People were calling me and saying to me, Judy, I didn't know that you went into the cosmetics business.
Oh, yes, I do remember.
And the people who crafted the advertisement, you know, with all kinds of real logos on the top
reviews
of it. And reviews, and I tried this stuff. And I remember being at the gym working out, and a woman came over to me and said, you know, I bought your cosmetics, and they were really terrible. And they keep sending them to me every month.
And probably charging her credit card.
Charging her credit card. And I tried every vehicle in the government to try to get somebody to...
shut it down.
Track it down. And the answer was, they're so smart that they use international, you don't know where they could be. They could be in Peru, they could be in Chile, they could be in Brazil, they can be in Canada. And I know that there are many other celebrities who were caught with the same scam net. But this guy said, my friend Jim...
Daniel Schumann is suing his former landlords, Diana and Donald Back, for an illegal eviction, security deposits, and an assault.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2085, Schumann versus Back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Schumann.
Yes, Your Honor.
I assume this is your wife?
My girlfriend.
Girlfriend.
And my son, Blake.
And your girlfriend is here just for moral support? She wasn't living with you in the house?
She wasn't living with me, no, but she was...
Sit down.
I was a witness.
Sit.
A part of it.
Sit down.
A big part of it.
She was not living at the house?
No.
Good. Just you and your son?
Yes.
And you were tenants of Mr. and Mrs. Back for how long?
I think it was 6 years.
Starting when?
When did I sign the lease?
August 2016.
Don't help him.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, 8/1/16.
And which unit do you rent? Because they also live in the house.
Yeah, it's 3 floors. I have the middle, and the top is just a little loft comes with a little loft.
And did you move in there with your son?
No, in the beginning, no. He wasn't with me.
Was it just you?
It was just me.
And when did he move in?
Probably 2 years later.
2018?
Yeah.
How old is he?
He's 15.
Now, in 2016, everything going well with your landlord?
Yeah.
Same landlord?
Yes.
What about 2017?
Everything's good.
Everything's going fine. 18? Must have been going fine because you brought your son in to live with you.
We did have a few incidences that I had to call the police then.
Okay, so in 2018, you had to call the police.
Yes.
When in 2018?
First time Mrs. Back came, and she had a problem with Blake. She said he walked too hard upstairs.
Okay. Now, before Blake came with you, with whom was he living?
With his mother.
How long was he living with his mother?
Since he,
Since he was born?
Yeah, since birth.
And did you visit with him before he came to live with you?
Yeah, I had him every other weekend and Tuesdays and Thursdays.
So something must have happened in 2018 because he's 15 years old, he's in high school. You want to tell me the reason? Angela, I want you to bear in mind, this is my business.
Yeah.
Just want to say to me he and his mother weren't getting along, I will accept that.
No, that's not why. She wanted to move to Florida, and she said I could have Blake.
Interesting. Okay, so the first time you started to have trouble was when your son came and Mrs. Back said that he was walking too loud, making too much noise upstairs.
Yeah.
And how did she communicate that with you?
Well, Mr. Back was really the one who had the problem at night. Because Blake would go from his bedroom to the bathroom, and he walked too loud. That was it.
So what did you do?
Well, that was that.
I want to know why you called the police.
Well, why you called the police was because finally, this was the following year when she...
No, just a second. So that was it. In 2018, they told you that your son was walking too heavy.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night, going from his room to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay, but that didn't require a call to the police. So I'm waiting.
Well,
this is not a well. You call the police. I want to tell you something. I've been a tenant for most of my life. I've never called the police on the landlord. So this is not an answer that starts with well. When was the first time you called the police regarding Mr. and Mrs. Back, and for what reason?
She illegally entered my apartment. She used her key to come into my house.
Okay. Don't speak. I told you not to speak.
Okay, I'm sorry.
When did she use a key to come into your apartment?
What time of the day?
No,
month. The day and,
month?
I don't remember. I mean, I have the police report.
Oh, I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
Well, that will tell me.
The door was open, Your Honor. Sorry.
What part don't you understand? You want me to just grant his application and say goodbye to you?
I'm sorry. Sorry.
I know I had it. No, I have it, but I...
You have it, but you don't have it.
Well,
Okay, so that was sometime, according to you, in 2000, without your permission, using a key.
Yes.
And as a result of that, what happened?
Well, the officer came...
It's not a well.
Yep, the officer
So
came.
she came in, and you found out that she had been in your apartment. How did you...
Yeah, I was upstairs. I was in the apartment, and she came in.
Oh, she used her key...
Yeah.
And came in, and you were there.
Yes.
Tell me about that incident. So she came in...
She confronted Blake, then I went upstairs.
Just a second. She confronted Blake, and you went upstairs. Upstairs from where?
From downstairs. We were coming home. She came running down the block, saw that we were home, and started telling Blake that he walks too loud. You're walking too loud. You're walking too loud.
Just a second. She's in the street.
She was coming. She saw us, and she's coming
You
back.
said you were outside. You were outside. First you tell me, if I'm not mistaken, Whitney, he said he was in the apartment when she came in. Yes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. First you told me you were in the apartment. That's not accurate. This happened outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it happened outside, and she was yelling at your son that he was walking too loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, not yeah, yes.
Yes.
Okay. And now she's outside, coming from the beach. She's telling him, you're coming inside, keep going.
Then we went inside. I said, okay.
Just a second.
I said, okay, I'll tell him to walk a little softer, levitate a little bit. And we went inside, and I got onto the phone talking to somebody. I guess she heard me talking, and she opened her key and came up the stairs and started yelling. I wasn't yelling at Blake. I wasn't doing this to Blake. I wasn't doing that to Blake.
All right, next. 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 I'll tell you what this case is about so that everybody understands what this case is about. You're claiming that they illegally evicted you. That's one thing. You claim that they have your security deposit. And what else do you want? You say that there was a simple assault because when yelling at you, one of them spit on you.
It was a lot more than yelling.
I don't care what's yelling. Nobody hit you. That's either a yes or a no.
No.
You panicked
Yes.
because somebody was looking for your father and you knew it was the landlord.
No, I didn't. I
But-
thought someone was trying to break in.
Blake, let's get real, okay? Let's stop with the scripted scenario. Speak.
Daniel Schumann claims his former landlords, Diana and Donald Back, owe for an illegal eviction, security deposit, and an assault. Diana and Donald are countersuing for apartment damage.
Now, illegal eviction, return of security deposit. And you lived there until when?
Until June of this year.
Now, in June, something happened, and that's where your girlfriend has some information, because it was June
3rd.
You are Gina.
Yes.
Perfect. You and Gina were in bed asleep. Does Gina have her own car?
Yes.
Do you have a car?
Yes.
So that's 2 cars.
Yes.
Where are you supposed to park?
Well, we don't have a driveway, so you can park on the street if you want.
Okay, so you weren't parked anywhere near the house,
No, across the street.
correct?
Yes.
So his cars weren't blocking yours.
Yes, they were.
Where was your car parked?
My car was parked out front behind his disabled spot that he has for himself and only him.
Just a second.
Behind.
There's a disabled parking spot on a public street?
Yes, but it's only his, for his number only. So no one else could park there, or they get ticketed and towed.
Even if you're disabled.
Shh.
Yeah, even if you're disabled, you're not allowed.
Did you get a spot assigned to you, sir, assigned to your car because of a disability?
Yes.
What's the nature of the disability?
I had 2 cracked vertebrae in my neck. I dislocated my left shoulder. I have herniated and ruptured discs in my lower back and nerve damage down my left leg.
So you have a place to park.
Yes.
Were you or your girlfriend Gina in any way blocking Mr. and Mrs. Back's car?
No.
Okay. Did you see where they were parked?
Yeah, she was parked on the street in front of the house.
Their car was parked. Go. June 3rd. Where was your car?
So my car was parked behind his disabled spot. My husband came in and showed me a ticket that was on my car, and I couldn't understand it because there's no meters or anything. And when I went to look at the ticket, it took me a little time. I checked it. It was for unregistered vehicle. First time in my life I've ever done something like that. I went online right away because I said, I know I did this in April in my mind because I do everything online. Obviously, I never sent it through, and I didn't realize it. Cops in the town have a scanner. They scanned my card. They gave me a ticket. I'm responsible for that. I understand that. But when I spoke to the cop, he said...
No, don't tell me what the cop said.
I can get a ticket every 12 hours. So I panicked. I said, okay, I'm going to try.
Now I understand what's happened.
But I needed to get my car
Just a
off the
second.
road.
So now I understand what happened. She got a ticket parking on the street. And the ticket for parking on the street was for having an unregistered vehicle.
Yes.
Your car was not parked in your designated handicapped spot. Instead, you and Gina were parked in the street.
Yes.
So she came to you to ask you to take your car and put it in your handicapped spot so that she could park in the driveway.
No.
Well,
we just asked for, just needed one of them. Can you see,
Just a
look
sec.
at this picture?
Just a sec.
And then you'll understand what I mean.
You asked one of them to move their car?
I tried to just get in touch with both of them at this point, just get their attention.
You said, Miss Back, no to me very fast. I want you to listen to what I
asked
said.
him to go in. There's 6 parking spots on this lot. So I didn't need him to go in his spot, is what I'm trying to say.
It doesn't
I
matter.
just needed him
You need to
for me
move?
get through. He could have stayed there the whole night if he wanted to.
Okay. And what time was this?
My husband walked in about 20 to 9. I started to look it up, thinking that something was wrong. By the time I figured that out, then I knocked on the door.
Just a second.
No
Give me a
answer.
time that you went to his door to knock at the door.
I started knocking on the door about 9 o'clock, a little bit after, maybe 5 of 9 o'clock. And then I proceeded to text, and I proceeded to call.
Okay. Now, prior to that, Mr. Schumann, prior to that date, at about 9 o'clock, when was the time about the behavior or a complaint about Mr. and Mrs. Back?
After.
Shh.
Okay.
What don't you understand?
When I called the police, it was probably about 9:45.
No, prior to that night, when she wanted you to move your car, when was the time immediately preceding that you called the police about any conduct of Mr. and Mrs. Back?
Yeah, I don't remember the date.
Give me the month and year.
Oh, wow. It was...
So far, we have
maybe
2018.
Maybe 2020.
So that was the second time that you've called the police?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You keep saying that. Okay. 2020. What was that about?
What that was about was she was downstairs with her friends. They were smoking so much marijuana that we couldn't breathe on the second and third floor. And Mrs. Zanino called her and said, you guys got to knock it off. You got to stop. We can't breathe up here. Had to open the windows, had to turn on fans, and I had Blake there.
May I see the police report?
That one I don't have. They wouldn't give it to me. They said...
Just a second. That they said you don't have that police report, but that you called because of smoking marijuana.
Yes.
Okay. And that was the time immediately preceding the call at 9:45 in June of 2022.
Yes.
There were no calls in between.
No.
Is that correct?
One after, but not before.
One after?
2 days later.
2 days after the
altercation. Yeah.
After the altercation. Okay. So now, according to you, you and Gina are in bed, sound asleep at 9 o'clock. Yeah. Where is your son?
He's downstairs on the second floor. That's where his bedroom is.
Okay. But downstairs, when you want to get in, do you get in from the second floor or the third?
Come in the house, you got to come in from the first floor. And then
walk up a flight of stairs.
Yeah.
So you have to pass where your son is. Your son is on the second floor.
Oh, yeah. If I'm going up to the loft, the bedroom door is right there. Yeah.
Okay. What's your son's first name?
Blake.
Your father. You're 15 years old?
Yes.
15-year-olds don't go to sleep at 9 o'clock at night. June 3rd, 2022. Where were you?
I was in the bathroom.
You were in the bathroom?
Yes.
All night?
No, not all night.
Well, when were you in the bathroom?
Around 9:30.
When did you hear banging on the door?
It was around that time.
It was around 9:30?
Yes.
What did you do?
Well, I didn't know what was going on.
No, you heard banging at the door?
Yes.
Did somebody say something?
Well.
Not well. Look at me. All you have to do is remember this. Don't speak, Mr. Schumann. Don't speak to him.
No, he's nervous.
Don't speak to him. He won't have to be nervous if he tells the truth. So you see, you just have to cool it. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Perfect. You have people who call the police on you all the time. You're going to get down on the ground, kiss the ground, and say, thank God for they're not in my house anymore. Do you understand?
Kind of.
He's happy. What do you mean, kind of?
Well,
what do you
I
mean,
wasn't ready for the change at the time.
Oh, you sound
ridiculous.
You sound ridiculous.
Daniel Schumann has accused his former landlords, Diana and Donald Back, of wrongfully evicting him and keeping his security deposit.
You came here. You brought him. Just remember that. You came.
I know.
You brought him. What did you hear when you heard banging at the door?
I heard Don scream, Dan.
You heard Mr. Back?
Yes. Mr.
Scream
Back.
what?
Dan. And.
Dan?
Yes.
And that's your father?
Yes.
How many times did you hear him scream Dan?
Only once.
Once. And are you out of the bathroom?
Well, I did.
That's not an
Sorry.
Are you out of the bathroom or still in the bathroom?
I'm still in the bathroom.
Okay, so you're still in the bathroom.
Yes.
Was the door open or closed?
Closed.
Closed. So behind a closed door in the bathroom, you heard Dan from the floor below.
Yes.
Dan. Now, what did you hear after that? What did you hear after that? Dan. Now, you knew somebody was looking for your father.
Oh, well, I panicked, sort of.
You panicked?
Yes.
Because somebody was looking for your father and you knew it was the landlord?
Yeah.
You knew it was the landlord?
No, I didn't.
You just told me that...
I thought someone was trying to break in.
You mean, just a second. Blake, let's get real, okay? Let's stop with the scripted scenario that your father is giving you. Because don't speak. Because at 9 o'clock at night, if somebody is banging at the door and calling your father's name, then it doesn't sound like a break-in to me. If somebody's banging at my door and somebody is yelling out, Nana, Nana, I know they're not trying to break into my house.
It wasn't.
Do you
banging
understand?
at the door.
Do you understand?
It was the whole house was shaking.
Okay.
The entire house.
Mr. Schumann, I'm not speaking to you. Do you understand? You brought this ridiculous lawsuit. You brought this ridiculous lawsuit.
The truth has to be told. I can't tell.
Just a second.
Because they're lying.
Mr. Schumann,
no, you're lying.
Mr. Schumann, you brought this ridiculous lawsuit, except for one thing. I'm finished with you. Sit down.
Your Honor, I wasn't even the one who called the cops at first.
Just a second.
The neighbor across the street called first because...
Mr. Schuman, you have a police report?
Yeah.
Then I'd like to see where the neighbor across the street called the police.
Yeah, that says it in
Just
there.
a second. I'd like to see it.
He also called.
Shh.
Okay.
Yeah, when I called, they said someone else has already called.
Give this back. Give this back. They don't understand not to talk. All right. I'm about finished with you. You moved out?
Yes, I was illegally evicted.
Great. It's a great thing that you moved out. It's a great thing that you moved out because you don't want to be with such bad landlords who yell and scream in the middle of the night, who smoke marijuana around your 15-year-old son who would never think of doing that. And so it's a good thing that you found someplace else to go.
Well, it is a good thing.
It's a very, very good thing.
The stress that's off me now.
Perfect. Then it's what we call a mitzvah that you moved out. Okay? The only thing that I'm entertaining on either side is, on your side, the return of your security deposit. Do you understand?
Yes.
How much was your security deposit?
$1,750.
When you left, did you get any of your security deposit back?
No.
What date did you leave?
It was the last day of June.
So it was June 30th. And you paid June's rent?
Yes.
So now you're going to have to explain to me, Mr. and Mrs. Back, and I think I'm going to go to Mrs. Back, why you kept their security deposit.
Well, Your Honor, he signed a lease when he first moved in.
Just tell me why you kept their security
Because
deposit.
he was asked to give me 60 days notice, written 60 days notice.
Forget it. There are people who call the police on you all the time. You're going to get down on the ground, kiss the ground, and say, thank God for they're not in my house anymore. Do you understand? Do you understand?
Kind of.
He's happy. What do you mean, kind of?
Well,
what do you
I
mean,
wasn't ready for the change at the time. That's why I always ask for 60 days notice.
Oh, you sound ridiculous.
I'm sorry.
You sound ridiculous. Do you understand why she sounds ridiculous? You had very, very bad experience with your tenants. Police were called. I don't know. I've lived in places all my life. Police were never called on me as a tenant. I never called police on a landlord. Out there in the near audience, I want to know how many of you ever called the police about your landlord. Raise your hand. I just want some idea. Raise your hand. Don't tell me the truth. Okay, good. Now, how many ever called the police on a tenant? Look at all this. How many times?
Twice.
Great. Landlord or tenant?
On a tenant.
You called about a tenant?
Yes.
About a disruptive tenant?
Yes.
So, with the exception of Kevin, who is a businessman, entrepreneur when he's not here, taking care of my business here, and he called the police twice because of the tenant. You, Lord, for getting rid of these tenants who called the police and not give me baloney about a 60-day notice. Now, if that's why you kept their security deposit, which is what you said to me, then he gets a security deposit back, $1,750. And that's the only reason you gave me.
It's $1,725, but
Just
I
a second.
didn't finish.
$1,725. You did finish. I said, what was the reason? I asked you twice.
Well,
what was the reason? And what was the reason?
I was letting him go from the 17th when he texted my husband to the 17th. The only thing I wanted in return is access. He said, no, see you in court. So I turned around and held him to his lease.
Very good. Not here. Not here. Okay. $1,750. He gets a security deposit back. $1,750 or $1,725?
It's $1,750.
Take a look. Let's get the number right.
The lease.
This is fascinating.
He signed his lease that says $1,725.
Okay. You have information to the contrary, Mr. Schuman.
No, she's right. $1,725.
$1,725. Judgment for the plaintiff. We're done. Counterclaim is dismissed. We're finished. That's it.
Court is adjourned.
Judge Judy was right about I should be counting my blessings that they're gone.
It was over a silly parking spot.
I'm glad he's out, but I don't think he deserves his security.
I mean, I couldn't teach him how to levitate. I tried, much as I tried, we couldn't get it.
I'll never understand why acrimonious relationships between landlords and tenants would wish to continue on for another 30 days, another 60 days, cut your losses and get out of there. And that's what happened. And the defendant's answer that, well, he was supposed to give me 60 days notice. Why would you want him there for another 60 days?
It's called the police on you, as far as we know, at least 3 times.
Yes.
Whatever. It was just a bad scene. And for some reason, he didn't park at his assigned spot because of his handicap. He parked, whatever.
I think everyone should just cut their losses
And
and go
move
home.
on and be happy. Life is so short.
Yes, agreed.
Be happy.